Bedtime Reading. Tess of the Durbeyfields. Chapter 1. A New Name. One evening near the end of May, a man went from Shaston to his house in Marlott village, in the Vale of Blackmore. He could not walk in a straight line on his weak legs, even though he was not too old. The man met an old minister on his horse.
"Good night,"
said the man.
"Good night, Sir John,"
the minister said. The man stopped to ask the minister a question.
"Why do you call me Sir John? I'm only plain John Durbeyfield,"
the man asked. The minister hesitated. Then he said,
"I am Minister Tringham. I know a lot about history. You are from the old and noble D'Urberville family. Sir Pagan d'Urberville is also a relative. He came from Normandy in 1066 with William the Conqueror." "Really?"
said the man. He was surprised.
"It's true,"
said the minister.
"You have the D'Urberville face. This family owned land and did work for the king for more than a century. There have been a lot of Sir Johns in the D'Urberville family. Minister Tringham, do many people know this?"
said the man. The minister said,
"Nobody knows the whole story. I found out last spring. I have an old silver spoon and an old seal at home,"
said the man.
"Where do the D'Urbervilles live?" "Nowhere. The noble family is no more,"
replied the minister.
"Your dead family lies at the Kingsbere sub Greenhill Church. The D'Urbervilles no longer own land." "What should I do about this?"
asked John Durbeyfield.
"Nothing,"
said the minister.
"It is just an interesting fact. Good night."
The minister was a little sorry he had said anything. He left. Soon a boy came. His name was Fred. Durbeyfield said,
"Take this basket, boy. Please do something for me."
The boy was unhappy.
"Why do you order me around and call me boy? You know my real name, and I know yours." "But you don't,"
said John.
"Fred, I am really a member of a noble family. I am really Sir John d'Urberville, and I have a family to prove it. Now, take my basket, go to the village, and send a horse and carriage to me. I will give you a penny."
The boy calmed down and said,
"Yes, Sir John."
They heard music come from the village.
"Maybe they know my news already,"
said John. The boy left John Durbeyfield. John could hear the soft music. The beautiful Vale of Blackmore is only 4 hours from London, but tourists and artists do not know it yet. It is a quiet piece of countryside. The fields there are always green, and there is plenty of water in the rivers. In the valley, the air will calm you. The sky is deep blue and the fields are small. Everything is healthy and green. To the south of the valley, the land is dry and the fields are big. Marlott is a village in the Vale of Blackmore. It is an ancient custom for women in the village to dance every holiday. For the May Day dance, they all wear white dresses. This May Day, a pretty girl named Tess had a red bow around her hair. The women saw a carriage pass by. Durbeyfield was in the carriage. They could hear him sing about his good fortune. Tess was ashamed. "Father is tired," said Tess. Her face was red. The girls got on with the dance. The men watched and danced too. 3 young strangers stopped to look. They were brothers. The 2 elder brothers started walking again, but the youngest was interested in the girls. He danced with several women. On his way out, he saw Tess. He thought her attractive. She seemed sad because he had not danced with her. He wanted to dance with her. He wanted to know her name. But it was too late. So he joined his older brothers. Tess saw the young stranger too, but she was too worried about her father's strange appearance to pay much attention to him. When she got home, her family's small cottage saddened her. They only had 1 candle. The furniture was old. 6 children lived in the tiny space. When Tess arrived, her mother was doing the laundry and putting the baby to bed. Joan Durbeyfield had many children. Taking care of them made her look old, but she was still a little bit pretty. Tess was pretty like her mother had once been. "I'll help you, Mother," Tess said. "I'm glad to see you. I have something to tell you," said her mother. "They have found out that we're the oldest family in the county. Our real name is D'Urberville. You should be proud. And that's why your father was in the carriage. Some people thought it was because he had been drinking." "Will this help us?" asked Tess. "Oh, yes. Our famous family members should come to meet us the minute they hear." "Where is Father now?" asked Tess, worried. Her mother paused. "You know his heart is too weak from being fat. The doctor said today that he might die soon, but no one is sure. He went to Rolliver's, the bar, to calm himself." "Oh, no!" shouted Tess. "I can't believe you let him." Her mother replied, "I must get him now. You watch the children." Tess knew her mother liked going to the bar to find her father. Then her mother could drink a beer and forget her family. It was one of the only times the hard-working Mrs. Durbeyfield went out. Then Tess had to look after the 6 small Durbeyfield children. Chapter 2. Disaster on the Road. That night at 11 o'clock, all the family at last went to bed. John Durbeyfield had to be up at 2 o'clock the next morning to deliver beehives to the Saturday market in Casterbridge. The journey would be long, at least 20 or 30 miles on bad roads. Just before 2, Mrs. Durbeyfield woke Tess up. She whispered, "Your father can't go." "But he is late already," Tess replied. "The bees must be delivered today. If little Abraham comes with me, maybe I can go." Tess and Abraham loaded the wagon. They left in the dark with the family horse, Prince. They tried to stay happy. After much silence, Abraham asked,
"Tess, are you glad that we're a noble family?"
"Not really," admitted Tess.
"But you must be happy that our noble family will come and help you marry a gentleman,"
said her brother. Tess was very surprised. "What would make you think that?" she asked.
"I heard our parents talk about it. A rich lady from the D'Urberville family lives in Trantridge. Mother said she would help you find a gentleman of a husband if you told her you were a relative,"
said Abraham. Tess became silent, but her brother did not notice. He talked about the stars and different kinds of worlds in the universe. When he asked Tess if the star they lived on was good or bad, Tess frowned and said that it was bad.
Why?
He asked. Because if we lived in a good world, Father would be healthy and Mother would not have to work all of the time. Our family would not have to struggle all of the time, Tess replied, as though in a dream. Abraham finally fell asleep, and Tess drove on. She imagined her father, drunk, foolish, and proud, being laughed at by the rich gentleman her mother wanted her to marry. All of a sudden, a loud noise and violent movement woke her from her dream. She climbed from the carriage and made a terrible discovery. Another carriage driving too fast on the dark road had hit her slow and light carriage and badly hurt the horse.
You were on the wrong side of the road,
said the man in the other carriage.
I must still deliver the mail, but I will send for someone to help you. Stay here and guard your things.
Tess began to cry as the sun came up. Prince the horse lay on the ground, about to die. It's my fault, she cried. Abraham, wake up. There has been an accident. We can't deliver the beehives because Prince is dead. Now we'll have no money. Abraham tried not to cry.
It's because we live on a bad star,
he said through his tears. A man came to deliver the beehives to Casterbridge, and then collect the horse's body. When they all returned to the Durbeyfield house, Tess told her parents the horrible news. They were not angry. However, when Mr. Durbeyfield heard that he would only get a few pennies for Prince's body, he became upset.
The noble Durbeyfield family does not sell its horse for cat's meat,
he shouted. And the next day he worked harder than ever to bury Prince. Everyone but Tess cried. Tess's eyes were dry and her face was pale. She believed she had murdered a friend. After the accident, life became even harder for the Durbeyfields. Without their horse, they had to carry their loads, and John Durbeyfield had to do less business than before. John had never been a hard worker, and now he liked working even less. Tess wanted very badly to help her parents, but did not know how. One day, her mother had an idea. Tess, we should take advantage of the news of our noble family, said her mother. There is a very rich woman named Mrs. Durbeyfield who lives on the other side of the wood. She must be a relative. You should visit her and explain that you are also a Durbeyfield. Then you can ask her for help. I don't want to do that, said Tess. We can't expect her to help us. She doesn't know us, even if we are all members of the same family. Tess, dear, you could persuade anyone. And who knows? Some other good thing might happen, her mother said with a wise smile. Tess's father did not like the idea either.
My children do not have to beg for help,
he said proudly. The more Tess thought about it, the less she liked her father's reasons for not going to Mrs. Durbeyfield's house. I killed the horse, she said, so I should go. But I am not going because I want a husband. Of course not, dear, said her mother innocently. For her whole life, the Vale of Blackmoor had been Tess's only world. But the next day she walked to Shaston, a strange town, and took a ride to Trantridge. Her only knowledge of the world came from her school lessons. Sadly, Tess was forced to leave school a few years early, so that she could find a job and earn money for her family. She had milked cows and made butter. She became angry with her mother for having too many children, since Joan Durbeyfield acted like a child herself. Her parents never thought about the future. Only Tess worried about her younger brothers and sisters. So naturally, it was up to Tess to approach the Durbeyfield family. Chapter 3. A Visit to the Durbeyfields. In Trantridge, she turned a corner and saw an amazing house. It was large and looked almost new, a deep red color against the green bushes that surrounded it. The woods behind the house were called the Chase, and they were an ancient forest. The house had a greenhouse and beautiful gardens. It was clear that the owner of the house was very rich. Tess stopped in her tracks and felt a little bit afraid. She wished she had stayed at home. The grand house was owned by the Stoke Durbeyfields, a northern business family. They had taken an old-sounding name like Durbeyfield when they moved to the south. This made Tess more of a real Durbeyfield than this rich family, but no one knew it. While Tess stared at the house, a young man appeared. He was about 24 years old. He was tall, dark, and handsome, and had full red lips, and his black mustache curled up at the ends.
"How can I help you, my beautiful lady?"
he said, as he stood in the garden.
"I am Mr. Durbeyfield."
"I came to see your mother, sir," Tess replied. Her voice was shaking.
"I'm sorry, but she is ill. Can I help you with something?"
the man asked. It was obvious that he was interested in Tess. "I will sound foolish if I tell you," Tess said.
"It doesn't matter,"
Mr. Durbeyfield said. His voice was kind.
"I like foolish things. So, please tell me."
"I came to tell you that I am from the same noble family as yourself," she said quietly.
"Are you trying to tell me that I have poor relations?"
asked the man. "Yes,"
"So you are from the Stoke family?"
he said. "No," said Tess. "We are Durbeyfields."
"Ah, yes. Of course, I meant to say Durbeyfield."
"I have a lot of proof that we are Durbeyfields. At my home, we have an old seal and an old silver spoon. Mother uses the spoon when she stirs the soup, so it does not look very new. She said I should come to you, since we are the oldest branches of the noble family. We need help because our horse died in an accident." Tess was very nervous.
"Your mother did the right thing,"
said Alec Durbeyfield.
"I have no regrets that you have come."
As he looked at Tess, she blushed deep red.
"Let us go for a walk around the gardens together until it is time for you to go home. You are very pretty, my cousin,"
he said. Tess was anxious to go home, but Alec would not let her. He offered her a ripe strawberry and tried to feed it to her. Tess was shocked. "Please," she said, "I would rather eat it myself." But Alec put the strawberry into Tess's mouth. He put roses in her hair. He filled a basket full of strawberries and flowers for her. As she ate the food he had given her, he quietly smoked a cigarette and watched her. Tess looked more grown up than she really was. Alec could not stop looking at her beauty, and Tess did not notice. Little did she know that the man smoking in front of her would be the cause of her life's greatest sorrow.
What is your name?
Alec asked. Tess Durbeyfield. My family lives in Marlott.
I'll ask Mother if we have a place for you to stay in our home,
he said. After they said goodbye, Tess left for home with her basket of flowers and strawberries. This was the beginning of her terrible life. She had met the wrong man, and he had been extremely attracted to her. What Tess also did not know is that she had already met the right man, too. But to him, she was only a distant memory from the May Day dance. In life, rarely does the right man come at the right time. In this story, as with so many others, the two halves that met did not match perfectly. Tess's perfect match would not enter her life again until much later, and this delay would create terrible results. Tess returned home the next afternoon. By the time she had reached her parents' home, her mother had already received a letter from Mrs. Durbeyfield. The woman had offered Tess a job at the Durbeyfield house, taking care of the chickens. Tess's mother, Joan Durbeyfield, was pleased and excited. I'm sure that this means she will recognize you as part of the Durbeyfield family, said Joan. The job taking care of chickens is Mrs. Durbeyfield's way of asking you to her home without making you hope for too much. I would prefer to stay at home with you and the children and father, said Tess. She sadly looked out the window of the modest Durbeyfield house. Why, Tess? I cannot tell you, Mother. I don't know how to say what I feel. Tess continued to look for work. A few days later, she returned home after a long, hard day. Her younger brothers and sisters ran out to meet her, smiling and shouting. They danced around her.
The noble gentleman has been here,
they announced. Alec Durbeyfield had visited the house to see whether Tess could work for his mother. Joan Durbeyfield was very happy. He is very handsome, Tess, she said. Really? I do not agree, Tess replied. She could not hide how unhappy she was. She turned again to her mother and said, I will think about the Durbeyfield's offer. Tess left the room. It is obvious that Mr. Durbeyfield is in love with our Tess, Joan told her husband. It seems like a perfect plan that he should marry her and make her into a fine lady. John Durbeyfield felt proud of his new noble blood, even though his health was poor and he had little money.
Yes, young Mr. Durbeyfield wants to improve his own family line by marrying into our older family line.
It took a long time, but Tess eventually agreed to go. Her mother, brothers, and sisters persuaded her, and Mrs. Durbeyfield secretly made plans for Tess's wedding. When the day arrived for Tess to go to the Durbeyfield house, her mother made her wear her best dress. In her Sunday clothes, Tess sadly said goodbye to her family.
Goodbye, my good girl,
John Durbeyfield said to his daughter.
You tell the young Mr. Durbeyfield that I will sell him the family title. Yes, that's right. For a reasonable price, I'll sell.
But, shouted Tess's mother, it will cost at least £1,000. While her father and mother argued about how much they should sell the title for, Tess wanted to cry. Her mother walked to the edge of the village with Tess. She stopped and watched her daughter walk away. She waved goodbye as an expensive carriage appeared. The man driving had nice clothes and he smoked a cigar. Tess hesitated, and then she finally stepped into the carriage. As Joan Durbeyfield watched her daughter go away, for the first time she wondered if making Tess move to the Durbeyfield house had been the right choice. That night she lay in bed worrying. Maybe I should have waited to see how Mr. Durbeyfield really felt about our daughter, she said.
Whatever,
her husband replied. He was half asleep and did not want to be disturbed. With that, Joan stopped worrying and trusted her plan again. If Mr. Durbeyfield doesn't marry our Tess when she arrives at his house, he will surely marry her later. She just needs to play her cards right.
You mean she should talk about her noble Durbeyfield blood?
Asked her husband. No, you fool! She needs to show him how beautiful she is. While Mr. and Mrs. Durbeyfield talked, Alec Durbeyfield drove the carriage downhill. He hit the horse and made the animal go faster and faster. Tess was extremely frightened as she watched the trees rush by, a green mass. Alec did not notice Tess ask him to slow the carriage, and he did not slow down when she shouted and held on to his arm.
Hold on to my waist, my beauty,
Alec laughed.
Put your arms around me.
I will never, Tess said. Alec smiled coldly.
I'll stop if you let me give you a little kiss.
Tess was terrified.
Otherwise,
said Alec,
I will kill us both in this carriage.
If that is all that will make you stop, very well, she wept. As her eyes filled with tears, she said, I thought you might be kind to me. I don't want to kiss you or anyone else. Finally, Tess sat still and Durbeyfield gave her a kiss. She immediately wiped her cheek with a handkerchief. Her hat blew off her head and onto the road. When Durbeyfield stopped the horse, Tess got off the carriage to fetch her hat. She was very angry. I'll walk the rest of the way, she said.
But it is at least 5 or 6 miles from here.
It doesn't matter, said Tess. Now it was Durbeyfield's turn to be angry.
You threw off your hat on purpose, didn't you?
When Tess would not answer, he said terrible things to her. I hate you, shouted Tess. I'm going home. Alec began to laugh at Tess.
I promise never to do such a thing again,
he said.
Now, get in the carriage and we will go.
But Tess continued to walk towards Trantridge. The pair moved very slowly down the road. Tess on foot and Durbeyfield in the carriage beside her. Chapter 4. A Terrible Night. Tess was supposed to take care of the chickens that lived on Mrs. Durbeyfield's land. On her first day at work, Tess had to take a few of the chickens out of the old cottage they lived in and take them to their owner. Quickly, Tess discovered that Mrs. Durbeyfield was blind. The old woman held each bird in her lap and felt it with her hands to see if it was in good health. When she was finished, she asked Tess, Can you whistle? What do you mean, ma'am? Whistle, child. Can you whistle a tune? I want you to whistle to my chickens every day. So practice hard. Yes, ma'am. It came as little surprise that Mrs. Durbeyfield was such a cold woman. Tess did not expect else of such a wealthy and great old lady. However, Tess did not know that Alec had not told his mother that they had a family connection. Tess came to enjoy her work with the chickens. One day, while she stood in the cottage garden, Tess decided it was time to whistle to the chickens. She practiced whistling a tune, but was surprised to discover that she had forgotten how to whistle. She tried hard and did not notice that Mr. Durbeyfield had arrived. When she saw something move near the garden wall, behind a tree, she shouted in surprise. It was Alec.
"Hello, Cousin Tess. You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen,"
he said. Tess trembled.
"I've been on the other side of the wall watching you,"
he continued.
"I can teach you to whistle."
"No!" cried Tess, walking backwards toward the door.
"I won't touch you. Don't worry. Just watch me."
Alec taught Tess to whistle, and she learned to whistle to the birds just as Mrs. Durbeyfield had asked. As more time passed, she often saw Durbeyfield as he walked through the garden. Tess became less shy. On Saturday nights, people who worked on neighboring farms went to the market town to drink and dance. The town was 2 or 3 miles away. On Sundays, they all slept late. Tess did not want to go on these trips to town for a long time. But then she got bored and started to go. Soon she was going every week. Every Saturday night, she returned home with a large group of people. It felt safer for her that way. Then one Saturday night, she met Alec Durbeyfield just as it was time to go home. She was walking around town looking for her friends.
"Hello, beautiful cousin,"
he said.
"What are you doing here so late?"
"Waiting for my friends,"
"I'll see you again,"
he said as he walked away. Tess began to worry. The other workers were still dancing and would be out very late. She saw Alec standing against a door, waiting for her. His cigar glowed red in the night. After a while, Tess joined a group of people on their way home. They were drunk, but it felt safer to be with them than to go home alone. As they walked, they began to fight and shout. Everyone but Tess had drunk too much, so the argument quickly got out of control. Tess was running from the angry group when Alec Durbeyfield rode up on his horse. When he offered to take her home, Tess looked around in the dark. The group was gone and it was late. Finally, she said yes. As they rode down the road in the dark, Tess realized that she was very tired. She was so tired that she did not notice when they left the main road and entered the Chase, the oldest forest in England. It was foggy and Alec got lost. "Let me walk from here," Tess shouted. "It was wrong of you to leave the main road. I should not have trusted you."
"Don't worry, beautiful Tess. I just wanted you to enjoy a long ride on a quiet night. The fog is too bad now to let you go. You would surely lose your way."
Alec grinned.
"I will leave you here and find out where we are. When I return, you can come with me or go by yourself on foot. Either way, you will know where you are."
Tess agreed to his plan. As he turned to go, Alec told her that he had given her family a new horse, and many toys. "That was very good of you," Tess said. She felt terrible. "In some ways, I wish you had not given them anything."
"You must love me a little bit now,"
said Durbeyfield. Tess could not reply for a long time. "I'm grateful to you, but do not love you." She began to cry.
"Don't cry. Just wait here for me."
Alec made a bed for Tess out of old dead leaves. He covered her with his coat and walked into the fog. When Alec Durbeyfield returned, he found Tess was fast asleep. She was pale and beautiful in the dark. He placed his cheek against hers. All the animals in the forest were safe in the woods. They slept, and everything was dark and silent. But there was no one to look after Tess and protect her innocence.
"Tess,"
whispered Durbeyfield. He lay down and pressed his body against her. She was too weak and tired to escape as he held her on the ground and pulled at her skirts. She wept while her purity was lost forever. In life, evil often ruins good. Beauty is destroyed by ugliness. Thousands of years of religion and learning cannot explain why these things happen or why they always will. It is likely that hundreds of years earlier, Tess's noble ancestors had forced other country girls to have sex. Maybe they had been crueler. But this is not Tess's fault. She should not pay for crimes of ancient family members. From this night on, Tess's life changed completely. One Sunday morning, Tess was carrying a heavy basket and load. It was late October, about 4 months after she had arrived at Trantridge. It was only a few weeks after the night in the chase. Tess walked toward the hills that separated her from her birthplace, the Vale. People on this side of the hills were very different from the people in her village. Even the scenery was different. People from Marlott traveled north and west. People on this side were interested in traveling east and south. Tess climbed the hill that Durbeyfield sped down so dangerously on her trip to Trantridge. When she reached the top, Tess could see the familiar green land that used to be her home. Every time she climbed the hill to look at her village, it was beautiful. But Tess had changed since the last time she had seen the Vale. She had learned that evil exists even where there is beauty. Now it hurt her to look at her old home and remember how happy and innocent she had been. A carriage neared the hill. The man driving soon reached the place where Tess stood.
"Why did you secretly leave the house, Tess?"
said an angry Durbeyfield.
"I've been looking for you and driving like a crazy man, trying to catch up to you. No one would have kept you from leaving. If you won't come back to my mother's house, I'm driving you the rest of the way back to your old home."
"I refuse to return to your mother's house," Tess said quietly. She sat beside Durbeyfield in the carriage. She no longer feared him. He had gotten what he wanted and could do no more to hurt her. As they drove along, he made conversation, and Tess sat silently, thinking private thoughts. When they neared the village of Marlott, tears rolled down her cheeks.
"Don't cry,"
said Durbeyfield coldly. "I was born over there," said Tess.
"We're all born somewhere. It doesn't matter."
"I wish I had never been born."
"Well,"
he said angrily,
"if you wanted to stay at home, you shouldn't have come to Trantridge. It was obvious that you didn't love me."
"True. said Tess. "I never loved you. If I loved you, I wouldn't hate myself so much for being weak." Alec could not look at Tess. "I didn't understand what you wanted from me until it was too late," she said.
All women say that.
"How dare you!" Tess shouted angrily. Her eyes flashed with hatred. "Some women say no and mean it."
Fine.
Alec laughed.
I'm sorry that I hurt you. I was wrong. It's true. But you have to stop accusing me of hurting you. And I will pay to make it up to you. You will never have to work on a farm again.
"I would never take anything from you." Tess spat her words at Alec.
Do you think you're a queen as well as an actual D'Urberville, my dear Tess? I think you are sadly mistaken.
He continued.
I have always been a bad man, and I will always be one. But I will never do you wrong again. Please understand me. If anything should happen to you, if you are in trouble or need help, just tell me. I will send to you whatever you need.
Tess stepped from the carriage. She was about to leave Alec when he grabbed her arm and said,
You can't turn away from me, my dear. Please let me give you a kiss.
"As you like," Tess said. The emotion was gone from her voice. As he kissed her cheek, Tess stared at the distant trees. It was as if she wasn't really there.
You won't offer me your mouth? I believe that you will never love me.
"I will never," said Tess. "I could lie and say I loved you. Then my life would be comfortable. But I still have some honor, and I cannot lie." Alec was very depressed.
There is no reason for you to be sad, Tess,
he said.
You're still the most beautiful woman for miles around, despite what I have done to you. Please, just come back home with me.
"Never! I have made up my mind."
Then goodbye.
Alec drove away. Tess did not turn to watch him go. She walked alone in the cool morning sunshine. Soon a man with a pot of red paint appeared behind her.
Good morning,
he said. He offered to carry her heavy basket.
You're up very early on a Sunday morning. For most, it's a day of rest,
he continued.
But I do more work on Sunday than during the rest of the entire week.
Really? Asked Tess.
During the week, I work for men. But on Sundays, I work for God. Don't you think that is more important work?
The man paused at a gate and painted large letters on it. He painted the following words: "Punishment waits for you." In the morning air, the trees and fields were gentle and peaceful, but the large red words stared up at Tess. They accused her, told her she was no longer virtuous. Even though the man was a stranger and did not know what had happened to her, the words made her feel guilty. "But what if someone forced you to do wrong?" Tess whispered. "Are the words still true then?" The man shook his head.
I don't know the answer to that. I just paint the words and let others think about their meaning. They should make you study your own heart.
"It's a terrible thing to write," said Tess. "I don't believe that God would ever say those things." She grabbed her basket and walked away from the man. Her heart was beating fast. When she arrived at her parents' home, smoke was rising from the chimney. When she saw the smoke, she felt warm all over. But when she looked inside the house, her heart ached. Her family was as poor as ever. "What are you doing here, my dear Tess?" asked her mother. Joan Durbeyfield was shocked to see her daughter. As she kissed Tess, she said, "Did you return home to tell us your cousin will marry you?" "No, Mother, and that man is not my cousin." Joan looked worried. She studied Tess's face and said, "There are still some things you have not told me." Tess was very tired. She put her head on her mother's shoulder and told Joan the whole story. "I can't believe you did not try to get him to marry you," her mother cried. "You should have thought about doing good for your family and not just thought of yourself." Tess did not know what to think. Alec had never said that he would marry her. And even if he had asked, Tess did not love him. She would not have accepted. This only made her hate herself even more for what had happened. She did not entirely hate d'Urberville. Even so, she couldn't marry him for any reason, not even to remain respectable. Tess's mother was angry. "If you didn't want to marry him, you should have been more careful." "Mother," cried Tess, "why didn't you tell me about how evil men can be? I was only a child when you forced me to leave home. I didn't know anything." Tess thought her heart was breaking. "We must make the best of this situation. It is a result of simple human nature." That afternoon, many of Tess's old friends came by to visit. They were young girls who lived nearby. They had missed Tess while she had been at Trantridge. They told one another that Tess would marry the rich and handsome d'Urberville. Luckily, Tess did not hear them speaking. She laughed and talked to them, and for a little while she was happy enough to forget her shame. Chapter 5. A Terrible Death. When Tess woke up the next morning, there were no fancy clothes for her to wear. It was Monday, the beginning of the work week. No visitors came. When she woke up, Tess was surrounded by her innocent brothers and sisters. When Tess thought about how she had lost her innocence, she grew depressed. She saw a long, difficult, and lonely road ahead of her with nothing to hope for. Tess wanted to die. Over the next few weeks, Tess slowly cheered up. She even went to church on Sundays. Tess loved the old songs she knew so well, and she lost herself in the beautiful music. She sat in a dark, quiet corner of the church and listened to the minister. Soon, village people noticed her at church. They whispered about Tess, and she knew she couldn't go to church any more. From then on, Tess spent most of her time in the bedroom she shared with the other Durbeyfield children. She watched the wind, snow, and rain from her window. She admired sunsets and full moons. Many people thought she had gone away because she only went out at night. Tess liked to walk in the woods and fields because she had no fear of the dark. She only feared seeing other people. In the lonely hills she found peace, but she felt guilt when surrounded by the innocence of nature. When it rained, Tess thought nature was crying over her shame. When the wind howled, she thought nature was angry with her. She did not understand that even though society thought she had broken one of its rules, she was still innocent. She had not hurt the natural world. One morning in August, a group of men and women walked down the road to reap the day's harvest. They entered a yellow cornfield near Marlott village. 3 horses pulled a reaping machine through the field and cut down the corn. The places where small animals lived also disappeared. The animals hid, unaware that they would not escape the machine in the end. Men and women followed the machine, picked up ears of corn, and tied them together. The girls wore large hats to keep the sun off their faces, and they wore gloves to protect their hands. The prettiest girl wore a pale pink jacket. She looked at no one while she worked. When she stood up and rested, you could see her beautiful face. She was young, with dark eyes and long, thick hair. The girl was Tess Durbeyfield. Her life had changed so much that she lived like a stranger in her own village. That morning, Tess often looked at the hill. At 11 o'clock, children came from over the hill. One child carried a baby. The men and women stopped their work. Tess blushed. She sat away from the others and took the baby from the girl. She opened her dress and fed her baby. She was very embarrassed. The men were kind and looked away, while the women talked about other things. Tess played with the baby and then kissed it so violently that it cried. It seemed that Tess could not stop. "She loves that baby, even though she says she hates it and wishes they were both dead," said a woman who had been watching Tess. "She'll get used to it. This happens to many girls," said another. "It wasn't her fault. She was forced to have sex that night in the chase. People could hear her crying. Surely the gentleman who did this to her would have been punished if someone had walked by. It always happens to the pretty ones. Ugly women are perfectly safe," said another woman. Tess did not know the women were talking about her. She had spent months crying about what had happened in the forest. Then she decided the past had to be forgotten. Life went on, and soon she and her problem would be forgotten. Tess mostly feared what people said about her. She thought they talked about her constantly, but few people talked about her. Even so, Tess would have been happier with no other people around. She was unhappy because she believed she had been rejected by society. Tess wanted to be useful. She wanted to work. So she helped gather the harvest. Tess ate her lunch very fast. She worked again until dark. Everyone went home together on one of the large harvest wagons. They sang and laughed. When Tess got home, she discovered that her baby had grown ill during the afternoon. He was so small that the doctor was not surprised about his sickness. Tess was still shocked. It was obvious that her baby was dying. She forgot the shame she usually felt about his birth and only wanted him to stay alive. It was an even greater problem because the baby had not been baptized. Tess did not have well-developed ideas about religion. She believed that she would go to hell for her loss of innocence, so she didn't care about what happened to her after she died. But she loved her baby and did not want him to go to hell. Even though it was getting late, Tess asked her father to send for the minister. Her father had just returned from the bar. When he was drunk, he was most ashamed of what had happened to Tess. He would not let the minister into his home. He shut and locked the door. After the family went to sleep, Tess realized that her baby was close to death. Suddenly, she had an idea. she woke her brothers and sisters. She poured water into a bowl and asked them to kneel beside it. They put their hands together as if they were in church. The sleepy children silently watched Tess, not knowing what to say. She wore a long white nightgown, and her long hair hung in her face. She looked hopeful. Her beautiful face looked pure. "Are you going to baptize him?" one of her sisters asked. "What will his new name be?" Tess remembered the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible. Because Adam and Eve had sinned, God had made them unhappy forever. Tess looked at the baby. "Your new name is Sorrow," she said. "I now baptize you in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost." She splashed water on the baby. "Say Amen,"
Amen,
said the children. Tess dipped her hand into the water and drew a cross on the baby's chest with her finger. She repeated words she had heard in church, asking God to protect her baby from evil. Candlelight was shining in her eyes. The children looked at her amazed. She seemed like a god to them. Sorrow's fight against evil was not long. It was probably lucky for him that he died so young. He was born in shame, so his life would have been very difficult. Tess was calm when he died because she no longer worried that he would go to hell. Tess wondered if Sorrow could be buried at the church. She went to the minister's house that night to talk with him. "Sir, my baby was ill. I wanted you to baptize him, but my drunken father would not allow it, so I baptized him. Is he safe, just like he would have been if you had baptized him?" Tess asked. The minister wanted to say no. She had done his job, but he liked Tess's strong will.
my dear, it is just the same.
He lied. "Then can we bury him at the church?" The minister felt trapped. It was difficult to answer Tess's questions.
It's different.
Said the minister.
Oh, I'm sorry, but we cannot.
Tess wept. "Please, have pity on me and tell me the truth. Will my baby go to hell?" The minister forgot the strict rules of his job.
It will be the same,
he said. So the baby was put into a cheap wooden box. It was carried to the church at night. In the corner of the churchyard, there was a corner where drunks and unbaptized babies and people who committed suicide were buried. Sorrow was buried there, too. It cost Tess a penny, and she had to buy the gravedigger a beer. At night, when no one could see her, Tess put a cross on Sorrow's grave. Tess did not know what to do. She lived with her parents and took care of the children. All winter long, she made them clothes and worked when she could. More time passed, and important dates happened again. The night of her shame, the baby's birth and death, her birthday. One day she was looking in the mirror. Then she thought about another date, her death. It was then that Tess became a complicated woman. She often looked thoughtful and her voice was serious. Sometimes she sounded terrible. Her eyes grew larger. She changed into a very beautiful woman. Even though she had suffered, she had gained confidence from her terrible experiences. Most of the people in the village had forgotten her trouble. Even so, she did not think she could be happy in Marlott. Trying to be a part of the rich Durbeyfield family now seemed foolish and shameful to her. She believed that her family would never be respected again. She only hoped to find a place with no family connections and no bad memories. She wanted to escape from Marlott and lose her past. So Tess looked for jobs far from Marlott. She heard that a dairy farmer to the south needed to hire a milkmaid for the summer. She decided to go. Even though Tess said she would forget her ancestors, she was interested in the dairy farm because it was near the old D'Urberville lands. She hoped that some good would come of her living on her ancestors' land. Tess began to hope again. Chapter 6. A New Life. One beautiful morning in May, Tess Durbeyfield left her parents' house for the second time. It was more than 2 years after her return from Trantridge. She went in the opposite direction to the Talbothays' dairy farm. She took a carriage, and then she walked. She carried a basket. She could see the trees that surrounded Kingsbear. She could see the church where her ancestors were buried. She no longer admired or respected them, but hated them for ruining her life. All they had left her family were an old seal and a spoon. Well, thought Tess, my mother was a milkmaid too. It took her 2 hours on foot to reach the hill near the valley of the great dairies. The valley received water from the river Froom. Huge amounts of milk and butter were made in the valley, more so than in Tess's Vale of Blackmore. The Vale of Blackmore was also called the Vale of Little Dairies. As she looked from the hill, she realized that the valleys were very different. In the valley of the great dairies, the fields and farms were much bigger. She saw more cows than ever before. The setting sun shone on the red, white, and brown cow bodies. She knew the view of Blackmore better. She did not think the new valley was as pretty as her old home, but this view made her happier. The air was clear and the river rushed by quickly. Whether it was the change in the air or the start of a new life, Tess felt hopeful and happy. She still wanted to be happy and find pleasure. She was still only 20 years old and was young, beautiful, and very strong. She could not stay sad for too long. Tess wanted to show that she was grateful for a second chance. She sang love songs and songs from church that talked about God. But then she stopped. Maybe I do not really know God, she thought. Tess was happy to live independently. She wanted to live an honest life and work hard, unlike her lazy father. Women often live through terrible things, and Tess wanted to do well for herself. Tess walked down the hill towards the dairy farm. It was time to milk the cows. She followed the cows into the farm. The milkmen and milkmaids came from their cottages as the cows arrived. The girls sat on stools as they milked the cows with their cheeks against the cows' bodies. They saw Tess arrive. The men did not see her. Tess saw the head dairyman. He was middle-aged and wore white milking clothes. He worked 6 days each week milking cows and making butter. Every Sunday he wore his best clothes and took his family to church. Most dairymen are in a bad mood when milking time comes. But Mr. Richard Crick, the head dairyman, was happy to see Tess. He needed a new dairymaid because it was a busy time of the year. He was very polite and asked Tess about her family.
When I was young, I knew your part of the countryside very well,
he said.
An old woman told me that an ancient noble family once lived there. She said they originally came from there and had a name like yours. That woman is dead now, and I didn't pay much attention to her."
"Oh, that's just a story," said Tess.
"Well,"
said Mr. Crick.
"can you milk cows well? It's very busy, and I don't want any of them to dry up."
"Yes, I can." He looked at her pale face and soft hands.
"I hope you're strong enough for this work. It's very difficult."
"I'm very strong," said Tess. "I'm used to working hard."
"Then have some tea and some food. You have travelled far."
"I would rather work right away," said Tess. "I'll just drink some milk first." Mr. Crick was surprised. He no longer liked to drink milk because he had had so much of it.
"Have some,"
he said.
"I haven't had milk in years."
He offered her a bucket of milk and showed her which cow she would work on. As Tess sat on her stool and milk ran through her fingers, she felt like her new life was beginning. She relaxed and looked around her. She saw that it was a large dairy farm with almost 100 cows. Dairyman Crick milked the difficult cows. He did not trust the milkmaids to do it. If they did a bad job, the cows would dry up and give no more milk. Everyone worked in silence. Then Mr. Crick said,
"We're not getting as much milk from the cows as we usually do. We should sing to them."
The men and women began to sing so the cows would give more milk.
"I think the bulls like the music better than the cows. There is a story about a man named William Dewey,"
continued Crick.
"On his way home from a wedding, he got lost in a field with an angry bull. He played some music on his violin, and the bull sat on the ground to listen. Then William escaped." "Is it a true story?"
asked one of the men.
"Yes, it is very true. Sir, I knew William well."
Tess did not understand why the head dairyman would call one of his workers sir. Then the man stood up. Tess could see that even though he wore white milking clothes, he was different underneath. He looked like an educated gentleman. Then she realized that she had seen him once before. He had stopped to watch the May Day dance so long ago. He had danced with other girls, but had not danced with Tess. Tess was worried that if he saw her, he might recognize her. But he didn't remember her. He looked older and more thoughtful since she had seen him a few years ago. He had a mustache and beard. It was obvious that he was a beginner at the dairy because he did not milk well. Tess found out that only a few of the milkmaids slept at the house. They shared a bedroom near the cheese-making room. That night, the other girls told Tess stories about the workers in the dairy. Tess was half asleep and heard their voices float away. "Mr. Angel Clare is learning to milk," said one girl. "He thinks a lot. He doesn't seem to notice women. His father is minister at Emminster, which is far from here. All of his sons, except for Angel, are going to be ministers, too." Tess was tired and soon fell asleep. Chapter 7. Angel Clare. Angel Clare and his family had not planned for him to be a farmer. When he was young, people said he was very talented and that he could do anything. But now a look in his eyes showed that he did not know what he wanted to do with his life. He was a poor minister's youngest son. When he was a boy, his father discovered that Angel was reading a book that questioned the truth of God and the church. The minister worried that his son could not work for the church if he read books like this one. Then Angel told his father that he did not want to be a minister. He said the church was too strict and did not allow him to think freely. His father was shocked. The minister had a deep belief in God. And if his son did not want to be a minister, what was the point of sending him to college? He believed that the only reason to go to university was to become a minister.
"I want to question my beliefs,"
said Angel.
"Then what is left after I have questioned my ideas will be much stronger." "But, Angel, your family has saved money to send you to college like your brothers. But you cannot go if you are not learning to become a minister."
So Angel did not go to university. After years of staying at home, he decided to become a farmer. Then, he thought, he would have the freedom to think. As a farmer, he would be independent. So, at the age of 26, Angel went to work at Talbothays and learned to farm. When he arrived, he spent most of his time in his room. He read and played the harmonica. Then he decided to study human nature, so he ate with the other men and women in the dining room. The longer he lived at Talbothays, the more he liked simple country people. He did not think that they were unintelligent. He understood that they were the same as he was. They were all people who would someday die. He began to enjoy his work, and he learned about nature and life. He learned about the changing seasons, different types of wind and water. He heard the voices of nature. He had not known any of this before. In the days after Tess arrived, Angel Clare did not notice her. But one morning, while he ate breakfast and sang a tune, he heard Tess's voice. It was beautiful and sounded like a song. Then he saw her seated at the table.
"She looks fresh and pure,"
Angel thought.
"She is a true daughter of nature."
He thought he had seen her before, but could not remember where. But he knew he had seen her when his life was easier and happier, before he was forced to make difficult decisions. This caused him to look at Tess more often than at the other milkmaids. Mr. Crick made all the people who worked at the dairy milk different cows every day. He did not want the cows to become used to just one person. He feared that if a worker left the dairy, the cows would not want to be milked by anyone else. For Tess, the cows she had to milk all became her favorites. This made milking easier for her. Soon, she discovered that it was not by accident. It was because Angel Clare sent the cows in for milking and chose who would milk the cows. "Mr. Clare, you always give me my favorite cows," she told him one day. Tess turned red.
"It doesn't matter,"
he said.
"You do not plan to leave the dairy."
"I want to leave in the future, but I don't know when." After she had spoken, Tess was angry with herself. She had acted like he was involved with her decision whether or not to stay. After the evening milking was done, she went for a walk in the garden to think about what she had said. It was a summer evening in June. The air was clean and it was silent. Then Tess heard the sound of a harmonica in the air. Tess was curious. She walked towards the sound and saw Mr. Clare. He did not see Tess. The tune moved through her body, and Tess began to cry softly. Angel finished playing and saw Tess. She turned red and tried to walk away.
Where are you going, Tess? Are you afraid?
No, I'm not afraid of nature or of outdoor things, Tess said.
Are you afraid of things you find indoors?
He asked. Yes.
Are you afraid of life?
Yes.
Well,
said Angel.
Life is very serious. There are many reasons to be afraid, but I didn't expect a young woman like you to have these thoughts. Tell me why you feel this way.
Tess was quiet. Then she said, It is possible to see hundreds of days of your life lined up in a row. The first day is large and clear. Then the days get smaller, further away. They look hard. After some more silence, she said, But your music makes these thoughts go away. Angel Clare was surprised that the dairymaid had such sad thoughts. She seemed to be expressing the hopelessness of modern life. Her sadness made Tess more interesting to him, but he still knew nothing about her. Tess did not understand why a man from a good family with a good education and independence should be sad to be alive. She could not believe that this talented and lucky man had wanted to die, just like she had 2 or 3 years ago. He was not living with other gentlemen, but he was studying something he liked. It was obvious that he would become a rich farmer. Both Tess and Angel were curious. They wanted to know more about each other. Tess thought of Angel as an intelligent person rather than as a man. It made her sad to think about how much more he knew than she did. One day he asked her why she was sad. I think I've wasted my life. When I think about all the things you know, I feel like I am nothing, said Tess.
Oh, Tess,
he said.
I would be happy to help you study anything you want. We could study history.
I don't know. I don't want to learn history. I'll just discover that my life is the same as many other lives. I only want to know one thing. I want to know why the sun shines on good and evil things just the same. Her voice began to shake.
Tess, you seem bitter.
But Clare had thought similar things in the past. When he looked at her face, he thought she must have heard someone else ask these questions. He did not know about her terrible history. He did not think that she had guilty feelings about her past. After Angel left, Tess felt very stupid. She wondered if she could impress him by telling him about her Durbeyfield relatives. Maybe then he would respect her. She asked the head dairyman if Mr. Clare was interested in old family histories.
No,
said Mr. Crick.
He is a rebel. He hates old family history.
But this was not how Clare really felt. Even so, Tess was glad she had not told him about the Durbeyfields. Chapter 8. Falling in Love. That summer, Angel and Tess studied one another. During this time, they were like 2 streams running beside each other. Like those streams, they would have to join. Tess was very happy now. She and Angel often met in the early morning at 3 o'clock. They felt like they were in a story from the Bible, the story of Adam and Eve. Clare treated Tess like a queen. In the early morning light, she seemed like more than a milkmaid. She seemed like a perfect woman. One day after breakfast, everyone met in the milking room. The milk was not turning into butter like it should. Mr. Crick was worried. "Maybe someone on the farm is in love," said his wife. "Sometimes this happens when people are in love." Mr. Crick nodded. Then he told a story about one of his old workers.
Jack Dollop was one of our milkmen. He got a girl in trouble, and she was going to have a baby. The girl's mother came looking for him. He was scared, so he hid in the churn. The woman found Jack and turned the churn around and around. When he shouted for her to stop, she said she would only stop if he married her daughter. He agreed, but the churn was broken.
Everyone laughed at the story except for Tess. She was sad all afternoon. Only she could see how sad the story really was. While Tess lay in bed that night, she saw the other girls looking out the window. They were looking at someone in the garden. "It's no use to be in love with him, Miss Reddy Priddle," said Marion. She was the oldest milkmaid. "There he is," said Is Hewitt. She was pale and had dark hair. "I would marry him tomorrow if he wanted me." "So would I," said Reddy. "We can't all marry him," said Marion. "It doesn't matter anyway. It's obvious that he likes Tess. I've been watching him every day and found out." The room was quiet. "This is silly," said Is. "He is the son of a gentleman. He won't marry Tess or any of us." They all went to bed, but Tess could not sleep. She knew that Angel Clare liked her more than the other women. She was more beautiful and better educated. But should she let him fall in love with her? Mrs. Crick had told her that Angel wanted to marry a girl from the country to help with his farm. Tess had promised herself that she would never get married. She should let one of the other girls try to love him. The next day, Mr. Crick asked his workers to look for garlic plants in the field. If a cow ate any garlic, it would make all of its milk taste like garlic. Claire decided to walk next to Tess. "They are very pretty," she said.
"Who?"
"Is Hewitt and Reddy," said Tess. She thought that they would both make a good farmer's wife.
"Well, I have not thought about it,"
said Claire. "They are very good milkmaids."
"But you are better than them,"
he said. Tess continued to speak. "She turned red because you looked at her." But Tess could not tell Angel to marry one of the other dairy women. It was too painful. So she spent less and less time with Angel so the other women could have a chance. The month of July was very hot. The atmosphere in the valley was so hot that the people at the dairy were sleepy all the time. The weather was like a drug over the people, the cows, and even the trees. One Sunday morning after the milking was done, Tess and the other 3 girls got dressed and went to Mellstock Church. The church was 3 or 4 miles away from the dairy. There had been serious thunderstorms the night before. However, today the sun was bright and the air was hot and clear. When they reached the part of the road that was the lowest point, they discovered that it was covered in water. If they had been wearing work clothes and old boots, they would have walked through. But they were wearing their best clothing. They did not want to ruin their thin shoes and white stockings. They heard the church bell ring. They were still a mile away. While they talked about how to solve the problem, Angel Clare came down the road. He had already seen them and was coming to help.
"I'll carry you all through the water,"
he said. All of the girls turned bright red.
Marian, put your arms around me. Hold on.
And Angel walked across the water with Marian in his arms. He helped Is Hewitt next, and then Reddy. As he crossed the water with Reddy in his arms, he said to Tess,
Soon it will only be you and me.
At last it was Tess's turn. When he picked her up, she was embarrassed to find that he excited her. She wanted him to touch her body.
I had to carry 3 plain girls to get to one beauty,
he whispered in her ear. But they are better women than I am.
Not for me,
said Angel. Neither of them spoke. Then Angel Clare put his face very close to Tess.
Oh, Tess,
he said. Her face was red, and she could not look at his face. He respected her for being modest, so he did not do anything else. He walked as slowly as possible across the water. When they got to the other side, Tess's friends were looking at them. Angel said goodbye and walked back down the road. The 4 continued towards the church. Marian said, We have no chance against Tess. She looked very unhappy. Why do you say that? Tess asked. He likes you better than anyone else. We watched him carry you over. If you had wanted it, he would have kissed you. The women were no longer happy, nor were they bitter either. They were simple country girls, and they accepted their fates. Tess knew that she loved Angel Clare. It was even more difficult because the others loved him too. In her heart, she wanted Angel and her friends to be happy. That evening at bedtime, Tess said, I will not stand between you and Angel Clare. Even if he asked me to marry him, I would say no. I can never get married. But why? They asked. I will refuse all men, said Tess. So the girls all remained friends. They shared many secrets, and the air in the bedroom was heavy with their desires. They felt fire in their hearts, but had no hope that Angel would ask any of them to marry him. They were not jealous of one another. One of them had heard that Angel's family planned for him to marry a neighbor's daughter. Tess no longer cared if Angel was interested in her. It was a short attraction. It went away with the summer. The days became hotter and hotter. In this weather, even the smallest attraction could become love. So Clare became even more attracted to Tess. The fields were dry. Carriages made a lot of dust on the dry roads. The cows were restless, and Mr. Crick rolled up his sleeves. The men and women worked in the fields where it was cooler. One afternoon, Tess and Angel were working near each other. Tess rested her head on the cow while she worked. She looked at the fields. The sun shone on her face and made her look very beautiful. She did not know Angel had followed her. She did not know that he was watching her. He loved Tess's face. He believed that she had the most beautiful mouth he had ever seen. He could stand it no longer. He jumped up and walked quickly towards Tess. He took her in his arms, and Tess relaxed. She was surprised, but very happy and excited. Just as he was about to kiss her tempting mouth, he stopped.
I'm sorry, Tess,
he whispered.
I should have asked you first, but I really love you. I really do.
Tess began to cry. She tried to get away.
Why are you crying?
I don't know, said Tess.
Well, now you know how I really feel. My heart was stronger than my brain, and I had to tell you. I love you truly, but I will not force you to do anything. I can see that you are very surprised.
Tess and Angel continued to milk the cows. Nobody had seen them. When Mr. Crick came to see if they were working hard, he had no idea that anything had happened. But something serious had happened that would change their lives. Love can change people's lives. Love should be respected as a powerful thing. Chapter 9. A Visit Home. The days and nights continued to be very hot. Angel Clare could not sleep. He took a walk one night to think about what had happened in the field. He had come to the dairy to study farming. He had only planned to stay at the dairy for a short time. He had wanted a quiet place where he could watch and learn about the world. But he was no longer interested in the world. His quiet place was filled with tension. Clare was a good man. He was thoughtful and honest. He did not want to hurt Tess and throw her away when he was finished using her. He took his love for her very seriously because her life was important too. However, he also knew that if they continued to see each other every day, their relationship had to develop. He would not be able to stop himself. He had not decided what kind of relationship they should have. In the end, he decided that they should not see one another as often. But this was a difficult decision, and his heart drew him to her. He decided to visit his family. In only a few months he would be done studying at the farm. He believed that he would be ready to have his own farm after he had worked at a few other places. If he were to have a wife, shouldn't she also understand farming too? He went down the road that went to his parents' house in Emminster. He did not look at the road. Instead, he saw his future. He loved Tess, but would he marry her? What would his family think? What would he think of it 2 years after the wedding? Would he still love her? As he rode towards the village, he saw a group of girls standing outside the church. One of them was Mercy Chant. She was the daughter of his father's neighbor. Angel's parents hoped that he would marry Mercy. She was respected in the church and taught children lessons about the Bible. But Angel could only think about the beautiful milkmaid who rarely talked about God. His family was surprised to see him, but they were very happy. Angel was happy to be at home, even though he felt a little distant from his family. His father was very religious, but he was kind and honest. He loved his sons. Even so, he would have been shocked to find out that Angel was in love with a woman like Tess. Angel's mother was also very religious. She helped at the church. Even though his brothers were well educated, they did not think about things very hard. They often just accepted what people told them. They did not respect people who had not gone to university or who did not go to church. Angel went for a walk with his brothers. He believed they were lucky to go to college, but that they did not truly understand life. They thought farming was a job for poor men. This made Angel want to be a farmer even more. That evening, Angel spoke with his father. Mr. Clare told Angel that he had saved the money that he was going to use for his university education. Angel decided to ask his father what kind of wife would be best for a farmer.
You need a Christian woman,
said the minister.
Nothing else matters. But shouldn't it also be important that she can work on a farm?
Asked Angel.
She should be able to milk cows. churn butter, take care of animals, and handle the farm workers.
Mr. Clare had not thought of these things before.
Well, I guess that is true,
He said,
but you will never find a better Christian woman than Mercy Chant. It would make me and your mother very happy if you married her. Yes, Mercy is a good woman, but, Father, I think I should find a woman who understands farming as well as being good and pure. That would be better.
Mr. Clare and his son spoke for a while. Then Angel told his father that he had found a woman who was suitable to be a farmer's wife. He said that she went to church, was honest, intelligent, pure, and extremely beautiful. His mother had entered the room, but her husband and son had not noticed. "Is she from a good family like Mercy is?" she asked. She was very surprised.
She is not a fine lady,
said Angel.
She is the daughter of a poor man. But it doesn't matter to me. I need a wife who will work hard and live with very little money.
But Mercy is educated, and that is important, said Mrs. Clare.
I can help her learn to read. She is intelligent and will learn fast. She is so beautiful that her life is like a poem. She lives what poets can only write. And she is a good Christian.
Angel's parents doubted that his religious beliefs were very strong. They were relieved to hear that his future wife was a Christian. They told him not to act too quickly. They said they wanted to meet this woman. Although Angel had permission to marry whom he liked, he took his parents' advice. He did not want to hurt their feelings. Angel returned to the dairy to see Tess. His father went with him part of the way. On the way, the minister told his son about the Durbeyfield family near Trantridge. They had taken the name Durbeyfield, even though it was not their real name. The blind woman lived in a large house with her son. In church one day, Mr. Clare had said that the young man was very wicked. Everyone already knew this well. After church, the young Durbeyfield had shouted at the minister in public. Angel was very angry.
Father, you should not have let him do that. I don't care. I must say when someone does evil. It is my job. Men have hit me, but it doesn't matter. After, they stop hitting their families. Later, they often thank me and thank God. I hope this man changes, too,
said Angel.
But it seems like he is too bad to change. I will hope anyway,
said the minister.
Maybe he will listen to me some day.
Angel did not agree with his father's religious beliefs, but he loved him because he was so brave. His father had also not asked whether Tess had money. His father did not think money was very important, so his sons would probably all be poor. Angel admired his father's belief that money was not important. Chapter 10. Angel's Offer. When Angel returned to the dairy, it was afternoon. The weather was hot, and everyone was asleep. The milkers woke up very early and rested in the afternoon. Angel heard a noise. When he looked up, Tess was standing in front of him. She did not see him. She raised her arms above her head. Then she saw Angel. Tess was very surprised. "Mr. Clare," she said, "you frightened me." She looked happy and scared at the same time. Clare put his arms around Tess.
Tess,
he whispered,
please don't call me Mr. Clare. I came back just to see you.
They held one another and stood in the sun. He looked at her blue eyes and thought that she was very beautiful. "I must go to work," said Tess. They walked to the farm together. The heat made Tess feel like she was in a dream.
I have a question to ask you,
said Angel.
I want to get married soon. I will be a farmer and want a wife who knows about farms. Will you be my wife, Tess?
Tess looked worried. She loved Angel, but she had not thought that he would ask her to marry him. "Oh, Mr. Clare, I am so sorry. I can't be your wife," Tess cried. Her heart broke. Clare was shocked.
Don't you love me? I can't believe this.
"Of course I love you. I want to marry you, but I can't."
Tess, have you agreed to marry someone else?
"No," said Tess. She was very unhappy.
Then why won't you say yes?
Tess was very quiet. Then she said, "Your father is a minister. Your mother will want you to marry a lady."
No,
said Angel.
I went home to ask them if I could marry you.
"I cannot do it,"
I will give you time,
said Angel. Tess tried to work again, but she was crying too much. She could not say why she was sad, not even to Clare. He tried to make Tess happy again. He talked about other things, like the good work his father did. He mentioned the young man who had said bad things to his father. He said this man was from near Trantridge, and that he had a blind mother. Tess now looked very upset and old. Clare did not notice. They finished working. Clare asked Tess about marriage again. "No," said Tess. She could only think of Alec d'Urberville. She went with the other milkmaids to see the cows. Angel watched her walk and thought about how much he loved her. He knew that she was the right woman for him. Clare was sure that Tess would agree to marry him. So a few days later, he asked Tess again.
Tess, why did you say no?
"I don't think I'm good enough. Your family would not respect me."
But you're wrong. My father and mother would love you. I don't care what my brothers think.
Angel had to hold her so she could not walk away.
I know that you love me, Tess. Please say yes.
Tess was very sad. "I know I am not good enough for you. I can't promise to marry you."
But you would make me happy.
"No, you're wrong," Tess said. Tess went to the fields to cry. She was afraid that she would say yes if she did not walk away from him. "I can't believe no one has told him about me," she thought. "Trantridge is only 40 miles away." Tess had a double life. When she was with Angel, he asked her to marry him. She wanted to keep her promise to herself, but she wanted to say yes. "I know I will say yes," she told herself, "but he may die when he finds out the truth about me." One Sunday morning, Mr. Crick said,
I have news for you all. It's Jack Dollop. The lover who was put in the butter churn?
asked Angel.
Did he marry the young milkmaid? No,
said Crick.
He married an older woman in a great hurry. He thought she was rich. Then she told him that she lost her money when they got married. Now they fight all the time.
"She should have told him the truth before they married," said Marion. "She should have seen that he only wanted her money and said no," Reddy said.
What do you think, Tess?
asked Crick. "I don't know," said Tess. She could not eat. She went to walk in the fields and think about the story. She still told Angel she would not marry him. Now he looked for her all the time. She knew she could not say no for much longer. She loved him so much that he seemed like a god to her. She knew he would love and protect her forever. This made her want to marry him and tell him the truth about her past. One early morning, when Tess was leaving her room, Claire stopped her.
Tess,
he said,
you must give me an answer, or I will leave the farm. It would not be safe for you if I stayed. What do you say?
I will think about it, Mr. Clare.
At least call me Angel.
Would that mean I agree to marry you? Asked Tess.
It would only mean that you love me, and you told me that long ago.
If I must, I will call you Angel. Tess smiled and Angel kissed her cheek. After work, all the dairy people went outside. Tess tried to make Angel like the other milkmaids. They would all make better wives than I, and they could love you as much as I do.
Oh, Tess, stop,
said Claire. Tess was happy to hear this. She knew what she had to say. Chapter 11. A Missed Chance. That afternoon, Angel and Tess drove a bucket of milk to the station. They were quiet as they drove down the road. It began to rain and Tess had no jacket. She moved closer to Claire.
Well, Tess,
he said,
what do you say?
I will try to answer before night. They passed an old house that Angel showed to Tess.
It belonged to the ancient Durbeyfield family. It is sad when a noble family dies out,
he said. Yes, Tess said. After they reached the station and left the milk, Angel asked Tess for an answer. The reason I said no is because I have something to tell you about my past life, said Tess.
Tell me if you want. I love you.
I grew up in Marlott. I wanted to be a teacher, but my family was poor. My father drank and did not work enough.
That is not unusual. It's fine,
said Claire. He held Tess close. And I am not really a Durbeyfield. I am a Durbeyfield. I come from the same family that owned the house we saw.
Is that the whole story, Tess?
Yes, lied Tess.
Well, why wouldn't I love you?
Because Mr. Crick said you hated old families, she said.
No,
laughed Angel.
I hate the idea that noble people should be better than other people. But I am interested in your story. What do you think of your ancient family?
I think it's sad. Tess was not able to tell Claire the truth. She was not brave enough. Angel was very happy.
Tess, people like a noble name. They will be happy if you become my wife. Even my mother will like you better. You must use your Durbeyfield name.
I like my Durbeyfield name, said Tess.
By the way, there is a family that is using the Durbeyfield name. They live near the Chase. It is the same man who was mean to my father.
Angel, I do not want to use that name.
Well then, Tess, marry me. Take my name and don't use yours.
Claire held Tess and kissed her. Yes, said Tess. When she said yes, she started to cry.
What is wrong?
asked Angel. He was surprised. I promised I would never be married. I wish I had never been born.
Tess, if you really loved me, you would not say that.
Then I will prove that I love you, said Tess. She kissed him hard. Claire could feel her love on his lips. They drove home in the darkness. I must tell my mother, Tess said.
Where does she live?
In Marlott.
I have seen you before,
said Claire. Yes, when you did not dance with me. When she returned to the farm, Tess wrote a letter to her mother. This is what her mother wrote back to her. Dear Tess, we are all happy to hear your news. To answer your question, you must never tell your future husband about your past. It would be stupid. It happened a long time ago, and it was not your fault. You promised me you would not tell anyone. I wish you and your man luck. Love from your mother. Tess did not usually agree with her mother, but thought Joan was right about this question. It seemed Angel would be happier if she said nothing. From that October, Tess was completely happy. Angel was the perfect friend and lover. He was intelligent and kind. She forgot her past. They spent all of their time together after they were engaged. They went for walks and talked about their future. Tess could hardly believe that she would spend her whole life with this perfect man. She forgot her past sadness, but she knew that sadness could return. One day she asked Angel, "Why didn't you stay in Marlet when you saw me dance? Why didn't you love me then?"
I did not know you then. You must not be bitter. Why are you so upset?
Tess hid her feelings. She said, "It would have been nice to have 4 more years of your love." They told Mr. Crick and his wife that they were engaged. The other milkmaids were all very happy for her, even though they were a little jealous. Marion said, "We do not hate you because we knew he would choose you. Remember us well after you leave." Tess was afraid to set a date for the wedding. She did not want a new life. She liked her life at the dairy, but it was clear that Mr. Crick did not need her help. It was the slow time of year at the dairy. Tess had to leave at Christmas.
Good,
said Angel.
Now we must decide when to get married.
They decided to have their wedding on December 31st. The wedding would be small and it would be at the dairy. Angel also felt that things were happening fast. He had not planned to marry so soon, but he wanted to be with Tess. He wanted her to learn to read, and he wanted to work more. They could stay at the old farm that belonged to the ancient Durbeyfield family while he studied and worked. The wedding day came closer. Tess could not believe it. On Christmas Eve, Angel and Tess went shopping together. They took a carriage into town. There were a lot of strangers who stared at Tess. She looked happy with Angel. While Tess was waiting for Angel to get the carriage, 2 men walked by.
"She is a beautiful lady,"
said one.
"She is beautiful, but she is no lady,"
said the other. Angel heard the 2 men talking. He was very angry. He hit the man in the face.
"I am sorry, sir,"
said the man.
"I made a mistake."
Angel said it was fine. He gave the man some money and left with Tess.
"Was it a mistake?"
asked the other man.
"No,"
said his friend. Tess was very worried on the way home. She had to tell Angel about her past. When she got to the dairy, she wrote Angel a letter. She wrote about the things that had happened 4 years ago. That night, she left the letter under Angel's door. The next day, Angel kissed Tess as usual. He did not talk about the letter, so she did not know if he had read it. Days passed, and he did not talk about it. Finally, their wedding day came. Chapter 12. Tess's Wedding Day. Tess's family had not been invited. Angel's brothers had not replied to his letter. His parents said he was hurrying into marriage, but that he could choose for himself. Angel did not care. He planned to introduce them to Tess as a noble Durbeyfield in the future. Tess was still worried about the letter. She went to his room and found the letter unopened. He had not seen it. It was too late for him to read it now. She went to find him. "I must confess everything to you," she said.
"Not today. Tess, we will have time after we are married. Then I'll confess my mistakes too."
"You really don't want to know?"
"No, I don't."
She wanted to call him her husband so much that she said nothing else. There were not many people in the church. Tess touched Claire to make sure he was real. When she came out, she saw the carriage they were driving back in. She felt like she was in a dream.
"Do you know the story of the Durbeyfield carriage?"
Claire asked Tess.
"Maybe this carriage reminds you of that story. A certain young Durbeyfield man did something very bad in his carriage. But it is a sad story."
Tess was tired and sad. She was now Mrs. Angel Clare, but did she really belong to Alec Durbeyfield? When they left the dairy, Claire kissed the other milkmaids goodbye. As he said goodbye to Mr. Crick, a rooster made a noise.
"That is bad luck,"
the workers said to each other. They laughed behind their hands.
"Go away,"
Mr. Crick shouted at the rooster. Tess and Angel arrived at the old Durbeyfield farmhouse. It was usually empty. Sometimes a woman came to cook and clean. Claire loved living with Tess. He thought to himself,
"I must take care of this woman. I must never forget to think about her feelings."
It got dark and started to rain. A man from the dairy arrived with their bags.
"I'm sorry I'm late,"
he said.
"Terrible things have happened at the dairy. The rooster was bad luck. Retty Priddle tried to kill herself." "What happened?"
Claire asked.
"She and Marion started drinking after you left. We found Retty in a river and Marion was drunk in a field."
"What about Iz?" asked Tess.
"She is at home, but very sad."
After the man left, Tess sat by the fire. They were girls who had not been loved. Tess had taken all the love, and she must pay for it. She would tell Angel the truth.
"This morning,"
Angel said,
"we said we would confess our mistakes. I must tell you something. Please, forgive me. I wanted to tell you before, but I didn't want to lose you."
"I will forgive you, Angel."
"When I lived in London years ago, I did wrong with a woman I did not know. We were together for 2 days. I have never done anything like that again. Do you forgive me?"
"Of course I do," said Tess. "Now I have a confession for you."
"It cannot be as bad as mine."
"It is just the same," said Tess. Then she and Angel held hands. She bravely told him about how she met Alec Durbeyfield and what happened after. When Tess finished telling her story, she could feel that things had changed. She had not cried or been upset. The fire in the fireplace looked like it was laughing at her. The things in the room seemed very cold. It had only been a short time since Claire had kissed her. Now things looked different and terrible. Claire stood closer to the fire. He felt like he had to move away from Tess. He had not understood the whole story, but he knew something bad had happened. As he began to understand how horrible the story was, his face looked like an old man's face. His head was in a fog, and he could not think clearly.
Tess, I cannot believe what you have told me. Are you crazy? This is unbelievable.
No, I'm telling the truth, said Tess.
Why didn't you tell me before?
Angel looked at Tess strangely.
Oh, I remember. You tried to tell me, but I would not let you. I remember.
He was talking, but still could not think well. His mind had stopped working. He would not look at Tess. Tess walked to him. She stared at him, but did not cry. Then she fell to her knees next to him. Please forgive me. Please, in the name of our love, she whispered. I forgave you for the same mistake. Claire did not answer. Please forgive me as I forgave you. I love you, Angel. I forgive you.
Yes, you did,
he said. But you do not forgive me, she asked.
Tess, it does not matter if I forgive you. It is not the same thing. Before, you were one person, and now you are a different person. Forgiving you will not change that.
Angel stopped to think about this. Then he began to laugh horribly. It seemed like an evil laugh. Don't laugh, shouted Tess. Her face was white. It hurts me when you laugh like that. All I want to do is make you happy. Please don't do this to me.
I know you wanted to make me happy.
I thought you loved me. Tess could not believe what was happening. How can you treat me this way if you love me? You frighten me. I will love you forever. No matter what happens, I want no more than you. How can you stop loving me?
But,
said Claire,
the woman I love is not you. You are a different person now.
Who did you love?
I loved a woman who looked like you, but who was pure.
Tess now understood how Angel saw her. He thought she was a guilty woman. He thought she had pretended to be innocent in order to make him marry her. Tess became very afraid when she saw this. She began to fall, and Angel moved to catch her.
Sit down,
he said.
You feel ill, and I understand why.
You don't want me as your wife any more. Isn't that right, Angel? Tess began to cry very hard. Claire sat and silently watched her. He waited until her violent crying ended. Angel, am I too evil for us to be together? asked Tess.
I need more time to think about what we should do.
I won't ask to live with you, Angel. I don't have that right. I will not tell my family that we married.
You won't?
he asked. No, I will not do anything until you tell me to. If you leave, I will not try to find you. If you never want to speak with me again, I will not ask why.
You will do anything I tell you to?
asked Angel. Yes, said Tess. I will do anything, even if you tell me to lay down and die.
This is good of you,
said Angel.
You have changed. You used to look after yourself. Now you want to sacrifice yourself.
Claire's words did not make sense to Tess. She only understood that he was angry with her. She stood in front of him and did not say anything. She did not know that he was struggling between loving and hating her. She did not see a tear roll down his cheek. He understood that Tess's confession had changed his whole life. He had to make a decision. He had to do something.
Tess,
said Claire. He tried to speak very gently.
I can't stay here right now. I need to go for a walk.
He left. supper was on the table. There were 2 glasses of wine. No one had eaten or drank. Only a few hours earlier, they had shared a cup of tea. As Claire closed the door, Tess stood up. Her husband had gone. She did not want to stay. She blew out the candles and followed him. It had stopped raining. Claire walked very slowly. Tess could see his shadow. It was black and frightening. Tess walked behind him, but he did not notice her. The road was wet, and she could see the stars. She followed Claire like a dog follows its owner. Tess felt she had to speak to him. "I'm so sorry, Angel," she said. "I did not plan it. I did not want those terrible things to happen to me, and I did not want to lie to you."
Well, that may be true, but you are still not the same.
Tess continued to beg for forgiveness. It might have been better if she had not spoken at all. "Angel, I was a young girl when it happened. I didn't know anything about men."
I understand that it was more his fault than yours.
"Then please, forgive me."
I do forgive you, Tess, but forgiveness isn't everything.
"Do you still love me?" she asked. Angel did not answer. "Oh, Angel, my mother knows other women who had much more terrible pasts than mine. Their husbands didn't mind too much, and I love you more than those women could love their husbands."
Don't argue, Tess,
he said.
There is a correct way to do things. I think the person who discovered you were a D'Urberville should have said nothing. Maybe you were weak. You couldn't say no to that man because your ancient blood was too thin. Maybe you were powerless because your ancient family is no good anymore. I thought you were a child of nature, but you are the worst of your ancient family.
Tess accepted what he had said. She knew he did not love her as he had just a few hours ago. Nothing else mattered. They continued to walk in the dark. They looked sad and did not talk. Finally, Tess said, "I do not want to make your life sad. There is a river nearby. I can end my life. I am not afraid."
Tess, don't say that. Do what I ask. Please, just go home and go to bed.
Tess obeyed. When she returned home, she found the fire still burning and the food on the table. She went to the bedroom and saw flowers over the bed. Angel had happily hung the flowers. Now they looked silly and wrong. Tess lay down. She had nothing left to fear and nothing to hope for. She was lonely, and she fell asleep. She was in the bedroom used by her ancestors. Claire came back home late at night. He made a bed for himself downstairs and went to see if Tess was asleep. He was glad to see her sleeping. He felt like only he could decide what to do. He felt responsible for her life and for his. Claire began to leave, but turned back. He still loved Tess. Then he saw a painting on the wall. It was of a woman with a proud look. She was one of Tess's ancestors. She looked like she hated all men. He thought she looked like Tess. The picture made him leave the room. He went downstairs to his cold bed. Claire was calm. He was cold. He had fought against his desire to be with Tess, but he did not like this. He found it hard to believe that Tess was not the pure woman she seemed to be. Life could be full of surprises. He blew out the candle, and the room was dark. Chapter 13. Tess's Marriage. The next morning, when Claire woke up, the sun was not shining. The fireplace was full of cold ashes. There were 2 full glasses of wine on the table. Claire sent the cleaning lady away. He did not want anyone else in the house. He made a fire and cooked breakfast. People walking by saw the house and envied the newly married couple.
"Breakfast is ready,"
said Claire. Tess came downstairs. She was dressed, but she was cold. She had hoped for the best when she heard Claire's voice. Now she saw his face, and her hope died. She walked up to him and put her hand on his face. Was this the man who had loved her? She looked pure and beautiful. Angel could not stop looking at her.
"Tess, please say it isn't true."
"It is true." Angel almost wanted her to lie. He wanted to believe it wasn't true.
"Is he alive?"
he asked. "No, the baby is dead," said Tess.
"What about the man?"
"He is in England," said Tess. Claire looked very sad.
"I did not want wealth or knowledge in a wife. I did not even care about a good family. I only wanted purity. I sacrificed everything. But it is not your fault."
Tess understood. He had lost everything. "Angel, I would not have married you if I had known how much you sacrificed. But there is a way out," said Tess. She was close to tears. "You can divorce me."
"Don't be stupid, Tess. I can't do that."
"Why not? I have told you the whole story."
"Tess, you don't understand the law. I cannot."
"Oh," said Tess. She was very unhappy. "I thought you could divorce me. I should have done it last night. I didn't have the courage, but I should have done it."
"What should you have done?"
asked Angel. "I should have killed myself. I was in the bedroom and had a rope in my box, but I couldn't do it. I was afraid that people would talk about my death. I was afraid that you would suffer." Claire was very surprised.
"Tess, you must never think about doing that again. Promise me that you will not."
"I promise. I understand that it was wrong, but I just wanted to make things easier for you. But killing myself is too good for me. You should kill me. I am only hurting you by being your wife."
"Be quiet, Tess."
"Yes, I will do as you say," she said. As they ate, they were tired and sad. They did not eat much and could not look at each other. Angel left to work, and Tess cleaned the ashes from the fireplace. She cleaned the house, made lunch, and waited for Angel to return. At lunch, they talked about his job. In the afternoon, he worked again. In the evening, he came home and studied. Tess went into the kitchen. He found her there.
"You don't have to work in the kitchen. You are not my servant. You are my wife."
"Should I think of myself as your wife?"
"Of course you should. You are my wife,"
he said. Tess began to cry. "I told you I was not good enough for you. You persuaded me to marry you." She turned away from him and cried like her heart was breaking. Any other man would have been softened, but not Angel Clare. He was nice, but he was hard. He had resisted his parents' teachings and did not go to church. Now he resisted Tess. Tess accepted this. She did not judge him for being cold. She still thought he was perfect. The next day, Tess tried to kiss her husband. He ignored her and said goodbye. She felt like he had hit her. He used to want to kiss her all of the time. On his way to work, Angel regretted being so cold. He wished he had kissed Tess just once. Every day together, they grew far apart. Claire did not know what to do. Tess no longer hoped for his forgiveness. One evening she said, "I don't think you will live with me much longer."
No, we cannot live together as a married couple while that other man is still alive. He is your natural husband. If he were dead, things would be different. If we had children, they would find out later. Everyone would talk about it. They would grow up under a cloud and hate you for it.
"I had not thought of that," Tess said. She was very sad. She had hoped that being together would make him softer. She wanted to win him back. She had not imagined that their future children might hate her. She remembered the time she had judged her mother for having babies when she could not take care of them. She did not want to make the mistakes her mother had made. Tess could have said that if they had a farm in a different country, no one would know about her past. But she did not argue. Maybe that was the right thing to do. Angel might always be bitter. Even if no one knew, he would not be close to her. One day it was too much. Tess said, "We must separate."
What will you do?
Asked Angel. "I will return to my mother's house. If I stay, I will try to make you stay with me. Then we would both be unhappy. I must go."
Yes,
said Angel. His voice was hard, but his face was white. Tess was surprised that he had agreed so quickly.
Since it was your idea, I think it would be good for us to separate. We should be apart for a little while. Maybe someday we will be together.
The next day they both prepared to leave. That night Tess woke up to a noise in the house. She thought it was Angel coming to her bedroom, and she was very happy. Then she saw that he was walking in his sleep. He came into the room. He was still sleeping. He said,
"Dead, dead, dead. My poor wife Tess is dead. She was so sweet and good."
These words sounded sweet to Tess. He would not say things like this while he was awake. She tried not to wake him up. Angel was still asleep. He picked Tess up and carried her downstairs. She wondered if he would throw her down the stairs or if they would fall and die together. He walked out of the house and to the river. She did not care what he did. They arrived at a place where the river was wild. Maybe he would drown her. They crossed the river on a narrow bridge. Angel walked towards an old church. He laid Tess down beside an old wall. He kissed her and smiled happily. Then he lay down next to her and went to sleep. Tess stood up. She persuaded Angel to walk back to the house without waking him up. It was very cold. She helped him into his bed downstairs. He was still asleep. The next morning, Angel did not remember what had happened. Tess did not talk about it. They left the farm, the place they wanted to have a happy life together. As they separated, Angel spoke to Tess.
"Remember,"
he said,
"I am not angry with you. I just cannot live with you right now. I will try to understand and accept you. Until I come to find you, please do not come to me."
This seemed like a terrible punishment for Tess. Did she really earn this? "May I write you letters?" she asked.
Yes,
he said.
please write to me if you need anything or if you are sick. You will probably not need anything. I might write to you first.
I agree to do this. Please know that this is very hard for me. Tess did not say anything else. If she had cried or begged, he probably would have softened. But she made it easy for him to leave. He gave her some money. They said goodbye. He watched Tess leave. He secretly hoped Tess would look back at him. She did not. He walked down the road alone. He did not realize that he still loved her. Chapter 14. Separate Lives. As her carriage drove to Blackmore, Tess wondered what she would tell her parents. She was very sad and worried. She left the carriage and walked the rest of the way home. When she got to her parents' house, her mother was there to greet her. Joan Durbeyfield was doing the washing. "Tess," said Joan, "what are you doing here? Didn't you get married?" "Yes, Mother, I did get married." "If you're married, where is your husband?" Tess looked sad. "He has gone away for a little while," she said. "Were you really married? Why would he go away? You said you were getting married on Tuesday." Mrs. Durbeyfield was shocked. "Yes, we married on Tuesday." "It is only Saturday, and he is already gone. This is not good. You have found a strange husband." Tess began to cry. She ran to her mother and put her head on her shoulder. "Mother," she said, "you told me not to tell him, but I did tell him. I couldn't help it, and now he is gone." "You are such a fool!" shouted her mother. "You foolish girl!" "I know," Tess said through her tears, "but he was such a good man. I didn't want to lie to him. It is terrible because I loved him so much and wanted to marry him." "It is too late now," said Mrs. Durbeyfield. "I don't know what your father will say. He was very proud of your marriage and told many people. He went to the bar to tell everyone that his noble family was great again. He is coming home now." Tess ran to her bedroom. She could hear her mother tell her father the whole story.
People will laugh at me all over the village,
John Durbeyfield said.
"Do you think he really married our Tess? Or was it like the other man?"
Tess couldn't listen to another word. Even her own parents did not believe her. She could not stay in this house. She gave her mother half of the money that Claire had given her, and told her parents that she was going to find him. Tess left Marlott again. She went to find work. Angel Clare also went back home. He had spent almost a month after his wedding trying to stay calm. He had studied, but could not get Tess's face out of his mind. He thought maybe he had treated her unfairly. Tess had been a large part of his plans for the future. He could not help but think of the countries where they could have a farm together. Claire wanted to go to Brazil. The land and people would be very different. Maybe he and Tess could go there together and start a new life. He thought about it for a while. Then he went to Emminster to tell his parents about his new plan. "Where is your wife, Angel?" asked his mother.
"She has gone to her family's house for a few days,"
he said.
"I have come back home to tell you that I want to go to Brazil."
"But that is not good. There are no Christians there," she said.
"I hadn't thought of that."
Eventually, his parents only wanted to talk about Tess. They were more interested in her than in Brazil. "We want to meet her. We are not angry that you married so quickly. We just want you to bring her home." Angel told them that she would stay at her mother's house while he went to Brazil. He said that he wanted to see if the country was good enough for Tess. He told his parents he would bring her to see them before he went back to Brazil with Tess. His mother was still disappointed. While her son ate supper, she asked him many questions. "Is she beautiful?"
Of course.
said Angel. "Is she pure?"
Yes.
"I imagine that you were the first man she ever loved,"
Yes.
he said. Angel's father had no questions. After the meal was over, he read a little bit from the Bible.
This is suitable for you to hear. It talks about having a pure wife,
said the minister. "We will think of Tess while your father reads," said Mrs. Clare. As they listened to Mr. Clare read, Angel wanted to cry. The words were very beautiful. Mrs. Clare said, "The Bible tells us that the best woman is one who works hard. That sounds like Tess. I really want to meet her. As long as she is pure, I know I will love her." Clare started to cry. He said good night and went to his room. His mother followed him. She looked worried. "Why are you leaving, Angel?" she asked. "Did you and Tess have a fight? Does she have a bad past?" She had guessed her son's problem.
She is pure,
he said. He felt like he had to lie. "Then nothing else matters," said Mrs. Clare. "There is nothing better than a pure country girl." Clare was very angry with Tess. He believed that she had made him lie to his parents. Then he remembered her face and voice. He remembered her warm lips and touching her. He missed her, but he could not see that she was pure, even though she had a bad past. The next day, Clare made plans to go to Brazil. He left Emminster. One day, on his way home from work, he saw Is Hewitt. He remembered her as a milkmaid at Talbothays. He knew that she had loved him. He knew she was pure. She would have been a good farmer's wife, too. He spoke with Is. She told him that Reddy was sick and that Marion had started drinking.
"What if I had asked you to marry me?"
Clare asked Is. "I would have accepted. I would have loved you." Clare was angry.
"I'm going to Brazil. I may not love you, but will you come with me? Tess is not going because we had problems."
"Yes," said Is. "I will go."
"You know the world would think we were doing something wrong."
said Clare.
"Do you love me more than Tess?"
"I love you, but no one could love you as much as Tess did. She would have died for you." Clare could not speak. He heard Iz's words again. He wanted to cry.
"I'm sorry, Is. Forget what I just said. I must be crazy."
"But I want to go. I'm sorry. I was too honest." Iz began to sob.
"Is, your honesty kept me from making a mistake. Thank you. Please forgive me."
So Angel said goodbye to Iz, but he did not go to find Tess. He decided to continue with his plan and go to Brazil. 5 days later, he left. Time passed. Tess found work at other dairies in the spring and summer. She sent all of Angel's money to her parents. They still did not work enough and needed her help. She did not want to ask Angel's family for more money. That winter, she met Marion on another farm. The earth on this farm was poor, and the work was hard. Tess did not care. She and Marion worked hard in the rain. They talked about Talbothays and the nice green fields. They talked about Angel. Tess did not tell Marion the whole story, so Marion did not understand why he left. They wrote to Iz. They wanted her to come and work with them. Tess discovered that the farmer was the man in Trantridge who had recognized her. Angel had hit him. He made her work harder than the others. When Iz came, Tess saw her whispering to Marion. "Is it about my husband?" Tess asked Marion. "Yes, but Iz said I shouldn't tell. He asked her to go to Brazil with him." Tess's face turned white. "What happened?" she asked. "He changed his mind, but he was going to take Iz." Tess began to sob. "I have to write him a letter. He said I could." But that evening she couldn't finish her letter. She looked at her wedding ring. Would a good husband ask Iz to go to Brazil so soon after leaving his wife? This new information made her want to see Angel's family in Emminster. She wanted to know what he was doing and why he had not written to her. She was sure his parents would be kind. On Sunday, she went to the Clare home. She wore her best clothes. Marion and Iz told her everything would be fine. They loved Tess and wanted her to be happy. Tess wanted to make the Clare family love her, so Angel would come back. Tess began to be afraid when she got to Emminster. The church looked very cold, but she had to continue. She hid her thick, ugly boots behind a tree and put on her shoes. Tess was nervous, but she knocked on the door. No one answered. She remembered that they would be at church. She waited on the street until people began to leave the church. She saw two men who looked like Angel and knew they were his brothers. She could hear them speaking.
"Poor Angel! Why did he quickly marry that milkmaid? Mercy Chant is so nice. He should have married her."
Mercy joined the brothers and they walked down the road. "Look! A pair of boots! They are very nice. It was bad to throw them away." The other brother said,
"I will find a poor person to give them to."
Tess walked by them. Tears were running down her face. She walked as fast as she could away from Emminster. It was too bad that she met Angel's brothers and not his father. His parents would have loved poor Tess. They cared for all lost souls, even people without family or wealth. On the way back to the farm, Tess became very tired. It was a 15-mile walk, and hard work waited for her. On the way, she saw a crowd listening to a minister. She stopped to listen. The man was saying that he had been wicked for years, but had been saved by another minister. Tess was shocked to see that the man was Alec d'Urberville. Chapter 15. A New Temptation. This was the first time Tess had seen d'Urberville since she had left Trantridge. Even though he was a minister now, she still felt very afraid of him. His clothes were different. He did not have a mustache, and his face looked different. But Tess did not believe that he had really changed his evil thoughts and actions. She quickly moved away so he would not see her, but he noticed Tess. His voice faded and his eyes dropped. He looked confused. Tess walked down the road very fast. She could feel him looking at her. Now she knew she couldn't escape her past. She would be reminded of her past until she died. As she walked, she heard someone walking behind her. When she turned around, she saw the one person who she had hoped never to see again.
"Tess,"
said Durbeyfield.
"it's me, Alec."
"I know who you are," said Tess coldly. They walked up a hill together.
"You may want to know why I'm following you. I want to save you from hell."
"Are you saved?" Tess asked.
"God has helped me. I want to tell you how I became good. Have you heard of a minister named Mr. Clare? He is a strict, good man who lives in Emminster."
"I have heard of him."
"He came to Trantridge and tried to show me how evil I was. I was bad to him, but later my mother died. I thought about what he had said. Now I only want to help other people become good too."
"Stop!" shouted Tess. "I don't believe you have changed. I hate you for saying these things to me. You ruined my life. You have some fun, and now you are saved." As she said these things, she looked him in the eyes.
"Don't look at me with such hatred,"
said Durbeyfield.
"Women still have too much power over me. You are very beautiful. If you look at me, it might be dangerous for you."
They came to a crossroads. There was a strange stone there. It was a lonely place that people did not like. They stopped there.
"I must turn right. I am speaking to a crowd at 6 o'clock this evening. What has your life been like since we last met?"
Tess told him about their baby. Alec was very surprised.
"You should have told me. I could have helped you. Before we part, put your hand on this stone. It was once a holy stone. Swear that you will never tempt me to be wicked. I'm afraid of the power you have over me."
"How could you say that?" shouted Tess. "I don't want to see you ever again."
"Please, swear you will not tempt me."
Tess did as she was asked.
"I will pray for you. We might meet again,"
said Alec. Tess walked down the street, still upset. She met a man on the road. He told her that the cross actually marked the spot where a criminal had been killed. This made her feel afraid. Finally, she reached the farm. The next week, Alec Durbeyfield came to see Tess. She was working in the fields. He told her that he would see his house in Trantridge and go help poor people in Africa.
"Come with me and be my wife. Help me make right the bad thing I did to you,"
he said. "No," said Tess.
"Why not?"
Durbeyfield still felt desire for Tess. He was very disappointed. "You know that I don't love you," she said. "I am in love with someone else."
"Maybe your feelings are not real."
"They are real. I have married him." Alec looked unhappy. "Please, don't tell anyone," begged Tess. "No one here knows."
"Who is he?"
asked Durbeyfield.
"Where is he now? Only a bad husband would leave you to work like this."
Tess's eyes flashed.
"Your eyes,"
whispered Alec.
"I didn't think I felt things for you any more, but I was wrong."
He grabbed Tess's hands, but she pulled away. "Go away. Respect me and my husband."
"Don't worry, Tess. I can control myself. I thought that if we got married, it would take away the bad in both of us."
"That plan will not work." Alec slowly walked away. the farmer came to talk to Tess. He was angry that she had wasted time and talked to a stranger. Tess preferred this angry man to Alec d'Urberville's sweet words. She did imagine escaping her hard life and moving to Africa with Alec, but she rejected the idea. That night she wrote a letter to Angel. She told him about her love for him, but she could not finish this letter either. She remembered his offer to Iz. One Sunday in February, Tess was eating lunch. Alec d'Urberville knocked at the door, ran in, and fell into a chair.
Tess, I can't stop thinking of you. Pray for me.
I don't think God would change his plans for you just because I wanted him to, Tess said. She didn't feel bad for Alec.
What does your husband believe?
Tess explained Angel's beliefs. Alec watched Tess speak.
You just believe what he says. All women are just the same,
said Alec. He knows everything, said Tess. Anything that is good enough for him is good enough for me, too.
Interesting. Maybe he knows more than Minister Clare. Maybe believing only in the Bible and religion is bad. Maybe I shouldn't have become a minister. I am supposed to speak at 2:00 today, but I am here. You have too much power over me.
You are letting a lot of people down, said Tess.
I don't care. You are the woman I always wanted. You are a temptation away from God. I cannot resist you.
Alec moved towards Tess. Stop! Shouted Tess. I am married. I cannot defend myself. Alec stopped. He left and didn't say anything. He thought about Angel's beliefs.
Her husband doesn't know that his ideas may lead me back to Tess.
He laughed. In March, it was harvest time. The farmer gave Tess the hardest job of all. She couldn't rest much. At lunchtime, she noticed d'Urberville walking towards her. He was not dressed like a minister. He looked like his old self. He smiled at Tess.
I am back.
Why are you following me?
You are on my mind. I see you night and day. Tess, when you told me about our child, my feelings for you became strong. I don't want to be a minister, and it is your fault.
Tess was shocked.
I stopped speaking to crowds. They were stupid to listen to a minister. Your wonderful husband is right. Now I am just like I used to be.
You should have stayed a minister, Tess said.
You explained your husband's ideas so well that I agree with him. Tess, you need help. I'm here and your husband is not. My carriage is here and we can leave together. You tempted me. Now we should share a life together.
Alec held Tess. She was very angry, but said nothing. She hit him on the face. Alec wiped blood from his mouth. He could barely keep his anger in.
Remember, Tess, if you are anyone's wife, you are mine. I will have you again.
Alec left and work began again. Tess was very tired. Alec d'Urberville had been waiting for this. He returned and stood next to her.
You are weak,
he said. He held her arm.
I told the farmer he shouldn't use you for such hard work. I will walk you home.
Tess was too tired to be afraid. You can be kind, and you wanted to make things right and marry me.
I can help you, even if I can't marry you. You must trust me. I have enough money to make you and your family happy and comfortable.
Have you seen them? Asked Tess. They need help, but I can't take anything from you. Please, leave." When she returned to her room, she wrote Angel a letter. It said, "Dear husband, I need your help. There is no one else. I am open to temptation. I cannot say who it is, but I need you to come to me now. Something bad might happen. I know you are far away, but I am in trouble. I need help. I deserve to be punished by you, but please be kind to me. I would die for you. Please come. I live for you only. I am lonely without you, but I am not bitter. Don't you still love me, even a little? I am the same woman you loved at the dairy. When I met you, my bad past died. Don't you understand this? I was a fool to believe that you would always love me. People say I am still beautiful, but I don't care, because you are not here. If you won't come to me, can I visit you? Save me from the evil that is so close to me. Love, your faithful, heartbroken Tess. Chapter 16. Death in the Family. Tess's letter finally arrived at the minister's house in Emminster. Mr. Clare was happy.
"I think this letter is from Tess. I hope this means he will come home more quickly. He did say he wanted to come home next month,"
said the minister. "I hope he has a safe trip," said Mrs. Clare. "I still wish that he had gone to university like his brothers. He should have had the same opportunities as them, even if he didn't like church." This was the only time she had ever disagreed with her husband. He was worried that he had been unfair to Angel. He thought it had been his fault that Angel's marriage had been so bad. If Angel had gone to college, he would not have studied farming and married a country girl. Both Mr. and Mrs. Clare were happy that Angel's recent letters showed he would be home soon. Maybe the problem between him and Tess could be solved. While his parents spoke, Angel was riding a horse towards the coast in Brazil. He was still a little bit sick. He had fallen ill when he arrived in Brazil. He was weaker than before, and he looked older. Brazil was a disappointment to him. Other farmers had come from England, hoping to make a fortune, but they had died in the fields or on the road. He knew that he could not farm in Brazil. His beliefs had also changed. He had new ideas about right and wrong. He believed that people should be judged based on what they had done and what they wanted to do. He began to think that he had been a little unfair to Tess. He thought about her and remembered that he loved her at the dairy. Angel forgot that he had told her not to write first, and wondered why she hadn't sent a letter. He did not know that his silence was breaking her heart. He had been traveling with another man from England. They were both sad and shared their troubles. The other man was older than Angel and had a more relaxed way of thinking. He told Angel that leaving Tess had been a mistake. The stranger fell ill and died a few days later. Claire traveled alone. After he had died, the man's words seemed more important to Claire. He felt ashamed of how he had treated Tess. He should have believed in her. She had no control over her past. He remembered what Is Hewitt had said. "Tess would have died for you." No woman could be better than Tess. She had treated him like a god when they got married. And when she had told him her story, she was heartbroken when she thought he would not love her. Back on the farm, Tess hoped that Angel would return when he received her letter. But the past had not changed, so he might stay away from her. She still spent her free time preparing for him to come back, singing the songs he liked. She cried while she sang. One evening, there was a knock at the door. A tall, thin girl entered. It was Tess's younger sister, Liza Lou. "What's wrong?" asked Tess. "Mother has fallen ill. Father is sick, too. He says he is a man from a noble family and shouldn't have to work. We don't know what to do." Tess realized that she must go home, but she still had work to do on the farm. She let her sister rest and started to walk home. It was a long walk in the dark, but Tess felt safe. She was worried about her mother. Early in the morning, she walked by the field where she had seen Claire for the first time. She felt how disappointed she had been when he did not dance with her. When she saw the old Durbeyfield family house, she felt like it was part of her bones. Her mother was getting better and taking care of the house. Her father did not seem sick at all. He said he had a new plan for making money. Tess took care of her mother, fed the children, and worked in the small garden. She planted the vegetables for the next year. She liked working outside with her neighbors. One evening, she was working in the garden when she saw Alec Durbeyfield walking towards her. Tess's face went pale. "Why did you come here?" she asked.
"I want to help you, Tess. Are you working at the other farm?"
"Yes."
"Will you join your husband now?"
"I don't know," said Tess. She was very bitter. "I have no husband."
"That may be true, but you do have a friend. When you return to your home, you'll see that I've helped you."
"Alec, please don't help me. I don't want to live," Tess cried and worked. When she was walking home, one of her sisters ran towards her. "Tess," she shouted, "Father is dead." "But he wasn't that sick. The doctor said it was because he had a bad heart." John Durbeyfield's death was more important than anyone had first thought it would be. The house was in his name. When John died, the farmer who owned the house wanted to put farm workers in it. He told the Durbeyfields to leave. They were not respected in the village because John had been lazy, and the village people thought Tess was a bad example too. So the Durbeyfields had to leave their home. The night before they moved, Durbeyfield visited Tess. He offered Tess and her family a little house on his land. They could live in Trantridge. Tess said no, but she felt angry with Claire after Alec left. She had not wanted to do wrong, and Claire had punished her. She wrote him another letter. It said, "Why have you treated me so badly? Angel, I do not deserve this. You are cruel. I will forget about you. You have been unfair to me. Tess." Tess sent the letter before she had time to think about it. "Was that your husband just now?" asked Joan Durbeyfield. "No," said Tess sadly. "My husband will never come." Tess was starting to feel that Durbeyfield really was her husband. The next day, the Durbeyfields packed their things and went to Kingsbere to find rooms. It was the home of the ancient Durbeyfields, and Joan still hoped that some good would happen because they were part of the ancient family. Near Kingsbere, a man came to tell them that there were no rooms. Tess and her mother left the things and children near a church. They looked for a different place to stay, but all the rooms were full. "Tess, why do you marry gentlemen if we are still in this bad position?" asked Joan. Tess looked sadly at her family's things on the road. Then she saw Alec Durbeyfield.
"I've come to help you,"
he said.
"I will talk to your mother. You'll see that I'm more useful than an ancient Durbeyfield."
Marion and Iz had watched Tess and her family pack. They knew life was hard for Tess. They hoped that she would be happy with Angel but they knew Alec d'Urberville was always tempting Tess. They decided to write to Angel. They wanted him to know about Tess's dangerous situation. They wrote, "Dear Sir, if you love your wife as much as she loves you, come back and watch over her. She is in danger from a man who says he is a friend. He is not. She cannot be strong forever. If water drops for a long time, it will wear away a stone. It will even wear down a diamond. From two friends." Chapter 17. Angel Comes Too Late. Mr. and Mrs. Clare were waiting for Angel to return. When they heard footsteps, they both ran to greet him in the dark. "You are finally home!" cried his mother. Nothing at that moment was more important to Mrs. Clare than Angel's happiness. When they entered the house, both parents were surprised at how their son had changed. The cruel weather and work had made Angel look 20 years older.
"I fell ill in Brazil,"
said Angel. He saw that his parents were worried.
"Have any letters come for me? If I had received the other one sooner, I would have come home immediately."
The minister gave his son Tess's second letter. It was short and angry. Angel threw the paper and cried,
"Maybe she will not want me now."
"She's just a country girl," said his mother.
"Actually, she is part of one of England's oldest noble families. She is a d'Urberville. I left her because I was small-minded. I found out she was not pure. She had been overpowered by a gentleman, and it wasn't her fault. I know she is honest and faithful. I must go to her."
Angel knew Tess was angry, and he knew she was right. He wanted her to have time to think about their marriage. He did not go to her. He wrote her a letter and sent it to Marlott. He was surprised when he received a reply from her mother. It said, "Dear Sir, my daughter has left. I don't know when she'll be back. I cannot tell you where she lives now. We don't live in Marlott. Yours, Joan Durbeyfield." At first, Angel wanted to wait for more information from Tess's mother. Then he read again Tess's first letter asking him to come home. He was so touched that he wanted to find Tess, even if her family was mad at him. While he was packing, the letter Iz and Marion had written arrived. This made him pack faster. He looked for Tess at the farm. He found out she had never used her married name. He also discovered how hard her life had been, because she would not ask his family for money. When he arrived in Marlott, he found other people living in the Durbeyfield house. As he walked by the church, he saw the place where John Durbeyfield was buried. A gravedigger saw Angel looking at the grave.
"That man wanted to be buried with his ancestors in Kingsbere,"
said the gravedigger.
"Why is he here, then? No money. This grave has not yet been paid for."
Clare went to pay the bill and went to Shaston. There he found Mrs. Durbeyfield and her kids. They lived in a small house. Joan seemed embarrassed to see Angel.
"I'm Tess's husband. I want to see her. Is she well? Where is she?"
Mrs. Durbeyfield would not speak.
"Do you think Tess wants me to find her?"
"No," said Joan. As he walked away, he remembered how Tess said she would die for him. He turned to Mrs. Durbeyfield and said,
"I know she wants me. I know her better than you. Please tell me where she is. I am so unhappy without her."
"She is at Sandbourne."
"Thank you. Can I help you?"
"No, we are taken care of." When Clare arrived in Sandbourne, he walked the streets looking for Tess. It was a bright, wealthy holiday town with gardens and tourist spots. He felt confused. Why had Tess come here? No one had heard of anyone named Claire or Durbeyfield. Finally, someone said,
"There is a D'Urberville living at Mrs. Brooks' house."
Claire went to Mrs. Brooks' house. It was large and beautiful. He thought Tess was a servant here. He rang the bell. When Mrs. Brooks answered the door, he said,
"Is Tess Durbeyfield here?"
"Mrs. Durbeyfield?" Claire was happy that Tess told people she was married.
"Yes,"
he said.
"Tell her Angel is here for her. She will know who I am."
While he waited, Angel wondered what Tess would think of him. He was still weak and he looked old. He was not prepared to see Tess. She was wearing expensive clothes and looked more beautiful than before. Tess stayed in the doorway.
"Tess,"
whispered Angel,
"can you forgive me? I didn't see you as you truly were. I'm sorry. Please come to me."
"It is too late," said Tess. "Stay away, Angel."
"Do you not love me because I look changed? You are my wife. I've told my parents everything, and they will welcome you."
"Yes, but it's too late. Don't you know what happened? I waited and waited, but you didn't come. I wrote to you, and you didn't come. He said you would never come back, and he was kind to my family when my father died."
"I don't understand."
"He has won me back." Claire looked at Tess and understood what had happened. Tess continued to speak. "He is upstairs. He lied and said you wouldn't come back, but you did. I hate him now for lying. Angel, please go now and never come back." They looked at each other without hope.
"It's my fault,"
cried Claire. The woman he had loved would always love him, but she would never be with him again. He had rejected her body, and now she belonged to someone else. While he thought, Tess left the room. Claire felt cold and ill. He did not know how, but he managed to go back outside and walk down the street. He did not know where he was going. Mrs. Brooks did not usually care about her guests. She only cared about the money they gave her. But Angel Clare's visit made her wonder about her wealthy guests, Mr. and Mrs. Durbeyfield. When Tess went back upstairs, Mrs. Brooks followed her. She listened outside the bedroom door. She heard Tess sobbing. She opened the door a little bit and could see Tess lying on the table. "My dear husband came home to me," sobbed Tess. "But it was too late, and you seduced me with your words. You said he would never return. But he did. You helped my family, and I believed you. I came to live with you. Now I've lost him again. This time it is forever." Mrs. Brooks could see Tess's tears. "He looks like he's dying," Tess cried. "It will be my fault if he does. You have destroyed my life and his. I can't bear this." Tess spoke, and then there was silence. Mrs. Brooks went downstairs. She could hear Tess moving around and saw her leave the house. She was wearing her best clothes. Mr. Durbeyfield was probably still asleep. He did not like to get up early. She wondered where Mrs. Durbeyfield was going. Then Mrs. Brooks saw a red mark on the ceiling. It began to spread. When she stood on a table, it looked like blood. She went upstairs and everything was quiet. Then she heard the noise of water drops. Mrs. Brooks ran to the street and found a man to help her. They opened the bedroom door and found a large knife in Alec Durbeyfield's heart. He was on the bed, dead and cold. He was still bleeding. Soon The news spread everywhere that Mrs. Brooks' guest had been stabbed by his young wife. Chapter 18. The Final Chase. Angel Clare had returned to his hotel. He sat at the table for a while, eating his breakfast and looking at the street. A note arrived from his mother. It said that his brother Cuthbert was going to marry Mercy Chant. Angel threw away the note. Finally he got up, paid his bill, and walked to the railway station. Angel found it hard to sit and wait for the next train. It would not come for another hour. Now he had nothing to hope for in love and no one to love. He wasn't in a hurry, but he wanted to get out of town. He started to walk along a road that led out of town. The road was open, and it dropped down into a valley. On the other side of the valley, Angel stopped to rest. When he turned around, he saw a small woman running very fast. As she came closer, he saw that it was Tess. "I saw you turn around and leave the station," she said. She was very out of breath. "I've been following you." She was pale, out of breath, and shaking. Clare took Tess in his arms and helped her walk. They walked under trees so no one could see them. "Angel, I want you to know I killed him." Angel thought Tess might be going crazy. "I don't know how I managed to do it, but I had to. I had to kill him for us. A long time ago, I hit him in the face. He bled, but I didn't kill him because I was too afraid. But I thought I might kill him one day. I never loved him, Angel. Please believe me. He came between us and ruined both of our lives. Why did you go away and leave me? I loved you so much. You must forgive me now. I cannot bear to be away from you any more. I had to kill him. Say you love me, please. Say you do."
Of course I love you, Tess. My feelings are the same.
Clare held Tess in his arms.
What do you mean when you say you killed him?
He heard me crying. He said bad things about you, so I killed him. Angel understood that Tess had found the strength to kill Durbeyfield. He was amazed. She made him forget the difference between right and wrong. She did not realize the seriousness of what she had done. She seemed very happy. Angel knew he could not leave Tess. She thought he would protect her, and Clare felt only love for his loving wife. He kissed her again and again on the mouth and face and neck. He held her.
"I won't leave you,"
he said.
"I will protect you no matter what."
They walked through the woods and avoided other people. "Where will we go?" asked Tess.
"I don't know. Can you walk a long way?"
"I could walk forever with you."
"We can walk away from the sea. When they stop looking for us, we can find a way to leave the country."
They were like children, only able to think of the present time. They liked walking together in the nice weather, but at night there was no place to stay and it was cold outside. Eventually, they found an old empty house to stay in. There was plenty of food and wine, and the happy couple went to bed. They stayed for 5 more days and had the good marriage they had not had. Neither of them wanted to leave. Inside the house was love and forgiveness. Outside, punishment waited for them. "I'm afraid you might hate me some day for what I have done," said Tess. "If that happens, I would want to die." A person came back to the house, and the married couple had to run. While they were hiding in the woods, Tess said, "I only have a few weeks left before they find and kill me. I wish we had stayed in the house where we were so happy."
"Don't say that, Tess. They won't find us."
They walked all day and night. Claire kissed Tess. She looked at him, and he still seemed perfect. "I love it here," she said. "There is no one in the world but us two. We have only nature and the sky above our faces." Claire decided it was time to rest. He put his coat on Tess and sat down beside her. They were quiet for a little while. Then Tess said, "Angel, if anything happens to me, please take care of Liza Lou. She is good and pure. I want you to marry her if you lose me."
"If I lose you, I will lose everything."
"She is just like me, but without any of the bad. It would seem like we were still close if she were yours after I die." Angel looked so sad that Tess said no more. Tess fell asleep as the sun began to rise in the sky. Claire saw something moving in the distance. It was a person. Claire wished they had kept on walking, but it was too late. He saw many men in uniform walk towards them. They were surrounding Tess. Claire jumped to his feet and looked for a way to escape.
"Stop, sir!"
shouted one policeman.
"It's no use. We've surrounded the place and won't let you go. Please, let her sleep,"
begged Claire. The men gathered around Tess. Claire held her hand. She looked like a trapped animal. When the sunlight was strong, Tess woke up. "Have they come for me, Angel?"
"Yes, dear, they have."
"Our happiness could not have lasted forever." Tess stood up and walked towards the waiting men. "I am ready to go," she whispered. Chapter 19. One Last Goodbye. One morning in July, the hot sun shone on two people climbing a hill. They were walking out of a nice city called Wintonchester. They were young, but they looked very sad. It was Angel Claire and Tess's younger sister, Liza Lou. They walked and held hands. They were crying, with tears on their pale faces. No one spoke. When they got to the top of the hill, they heard a clock strike 8. They looked at the city and could see the church, the prison, and the college. A tall post stood on the prison tower. They saw a black flag move up the post. The flag meant that Tess had been killed for her crime. The world was done playing with her. Her terrible life was over. Justice had been done, and no one cared. Claire and Liza Lou did not move for a long time. When they were strong enough, they held hands and continued to walk slowly down the road.